The Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan, and DigitalOcean. Go over to digitalocean.com and use our promo code LASTDigital, and then you can spin up your own Linux rig for free. Welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 405. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey, Noah, good morning to you. Guess what? Huge
I got
show.
a haircut in time for the show?
You did.
Oh, that's big.
you look sharp. Now you just got to fight the cold that's coming on and the crazy weather, and you'll be all right.
No, the weather's way better. I don't know if I told you. It's like melting. It's dry.
Oh,
out.
good.
It's wonderful.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, as things thaw, guess what? The reason why I thought it was bad weather because I thought it was a cold day in hell, Noah. This episode has been 445 days in the works. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, today I will be reviewing the Purism Librem 15 Ultimate Linux laptop. That's not a MacBook Pro sitting in front of me. That is the Librem 15. It is here. I've put it through its paces. I've solved a few challenges, and I'm going to tell you about the laptop that I crowdfunded on November 22nd, 2014 that showed up on my door recently, and how it actually compares and stacks up to what was promised. So that's coming up. Really excited to give that review to you guys. But not just that. Huge news this week to cover. Noah and I have been talking about this all morning. It's big news this weekend. The Linux Mint site was hacked. The forums, the ISOs were compromised. We're going to give you this. We're going to tell you about the scope of the problem, what software was used to do it, how you can find out if it's an issue that affects you, and maybe what our thoughts are on the issue and maybe the bigger picture here. And then also in the news segment, it is Mobile World Congress season, and that means we've got actual devices that you want to get your hands on. They're going to be able to run Ubuntu Touch. I'm not talking like weird name brand stuff. I'm talking actual lust-worthy devices that will be running Ubuntu Touch very soon. We'll tell you about that. Also, big official news for ZFS and Linux. It's actually better than we thought. The news is out from Canonical about the official ZFS support coming in Ubuntu 16.04. We'll give you the details about that. We're going to tell you about Mimic, something from the Mycroft project that looks really damn fascinating, going to make desktop Linux AI even better. And then Red Hat and Microsoft sitting in a tree. If that tree's name was Azure. With some interesting caveats. We'll tell you about those caveats in the news segment. Then after that, we got the feedbacks. But before all of that, Noah, you know what we got?
The picks.
It is the picks. And it seemed only appropriate on this episode of Linux Action Show where we are going to be reviewing something that I crowdfunded 445 days ago. I thought it'd only be appropriate to follow up on something, a crowdfunding project that we featured that appears to be shipping and seems to also have a bit of a crew establishing under them. It's called Endless. And we talked about Endless. Oh, actually, I put it in the show notes. I think it was, when did we talk about Endless? It was episode 363. So in episode 363, we told you about Endless, a computer designed for the entire world. And just as a real quick introduction, I'll play just a few seconds of their video that kind of explains it, since they could do it in a better way than I can with cooler hipster music.
A few years ago, while traveling through India, I had a really simple insight. Most people have a television, and I looked down at my phone, and in my hand, I realized it was a full CPU tower. In other words, if you used a smartphone processor to power a full desktop operating system, and you plugged it into people's TVs, you could suddenly make the cost of a computer the same as a smartphone. Meet Endless, the first computer developed with and for our users in emerging markets. It doesn't require training to use. It doesn't get slowed down with viruses. It runs on affordable processors, it can use your TV as a monitor, it's cheaper than most tablets, and it has over 100 applications preloaded that work with or without the internet.
And it runs Linux, which is why it's our Runs Linux pick this week. So the Endless is, it's actually a real product that is shipping and selling right now. Here's the prices it broke down to. $79 USD for the cheap one, and $189 for the more powerful one, as they put it. And the design of it's pretty interesting looking. It's how would you describe that shape, Noah? It looks like a subwoofer almost.
Here's what it reminds me of. It reminds me kind of like the overall vibe it sends to me is iMac circa 2003, like where they had like the color.
Right, where it was in the dome and it had a screen coming out of it, but this does you just supply your own screen.
But it looks like something from that era, the bubbly, colorful, playful thing. And it's interesting. Right before the show segment started, you asked me if I remembered covering this, and I'm like, or if I remembered watching it on the show. Yeah, I was a host on the show when we featured this. So I do remember now that I'm seeing it. And it'll be kind of cool to see if it actually takes out. My concern is I think there's an awful lot of competition in that sphere. You know, you have things like the Raspberry Pi and the Arduino and all that stuff, and so this is a fully assembled, ready to go kit though, which is kind of nice about it. It's totally user approachable. You just plug things in, and the other reason I'm kind of liking it is they are also supplying code upstream, like to Pulse Audio in GTK and to the Linux kernel and to the Open Build service. So they're actually participating in Plymouth, some other things, GNOME software, x86 Intel video drivers. They're actually working quite a bit of code too, which is and they're contributing that back, and they have kind of a good team. It's kind of neat, especially for this episode, to see something go from crowdfunding to actual shipping Linux product. You might be right, Noah. There is a lot of competition for something like this, but somebody's got to pull ahead, right? Doesn't somebody have to? So let me ask you this: what's the target audience for something like this?
Developing world, I think.
Okay. So yeah, I think there's probably a market. So the slightly untechnical savvy developing world, right? Because they're not gonna assemble something. They don't want to buy a kit and put it together.
Exactly. They just they need the internet or they need access to basic computer functionality. Chat room's pointing out, like you could pick up used PCs in the emerging market too as well.
For sure, but what are the power requirements? Like I know that was
true.
I did a consulting gig a couple months ago, and they were looking at we were looking at putting computers in the hands of people that were less fortunate. And one of the big concerns of using older machines is they were very power hungry. And the problem with that is in certain areas of the world, you don't have reliable good power, and so you got to be able to make do with alternative means sometimes. And that's where the ARM-based stuff really started to kind of shine ahead of used older computers, because they were not very power efficient.
So just to sort of conclude my thoughts on the Endless, here's why I do like it over something like a used x86 PC or something like that, Noah, is to me, well, this can never really run Windows, so that's a plus to it right there. A used x86 machine could be used to run Windows, and that's what a lot of people who are going to do these kind of outreach programs would do. But also, one of the things that struck me when we visited System 76 was that they played a bigger role. They don't just sell computers that run Linux really good. What they're actually doing is, and as you know, you talk to Emma, they're also playing a role of converting people and giving them an on-ramp into Linux and helping them move from Windows or the Mac into Linux equivalents. And so to have an entire product structure around the emerging world and people who are not super technical but need access to computers and using open source, it's not just the hardware they're selling, but it's also they're ideally going to make the right kind of deals or partnerships or whatever to get in certain stores and work with that type of customer base too, which is there's a lot of people out there that are making open source products that can be used in emerging markets, but this is something that's kind of bringing all of it together as a product, and they're being responsible from the beginning to end, from the manufacturing of the machine to the software stack to the support of it, which is a pretty good idea, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that you find when you find people that where their product exists a passion, and it's not just a job, it's just not where they go to work. It's actually something that they believe down in their core. When you find people like that, and you find companies that spring up of that, I think that's where you're going to get the best product. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when it ships.
I think it is shipping, but only in limited amounts right now. So I think it is actually kind of shipping. So yeah. I don't know. I was just checking to see what happens if I buy it, but I guess I don't need to do that. So I'm not going to find out. I'm not going to go down the path of buying it. You know why? You know why I know it? Because I got a Purism right here I need to review first. So before we get into the rest of the show, I want to thank our sponsors this week over at DigitalOcean. Head over to DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code. Are you ready for this? It's one of power, Last Digital. All lowercase, one word, Last Digital, give you a $10 credit over at DigitalOcean. This is where I go to basically spin up any Linux rigs now, even for local VMs. It's $5 a month for their 512 megabyte unit, but they also offer hourly pricing, so you could get a pretty nice rig and just pay the hourly rate and use it for several hours if you need to do testing. And then it's easy to flip it in production when you're ready. And DigitalOcean has a straightforward API that makes it really easy for people to build services and features around DigitalOcean. We'll be talking more about that once we get our Mattermost server up and actually going. It'll be running on DigitalOcean. You can get started in less than 55 seconds, and pricing plans start only $5 a month. For 20 gigabyte SSD, because they're all SSDs, a super fast CPU, and a terabyte of transfer with really good connections, 40 gigabit E connections at the data centers. They have locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, and Germany. For both Noah and I, it's our no-brainer solution. I host tons and tons of things up on DigitalOcean now that, like, for example, I also particularly like the fact that for my SyncThing server that I sync to, I have that hosted in San Francisco. That for me means when I pull down from my DigitalOcean droplet, I saturate the internet connection here. It's a 100 megabit connection. Of course, it's a Comcast connection, so you don't really get that. But either way, I really like that functionality.
It feels like land speeds to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's as damn good as I imagine I could ever get. To tell you the truth, it is damn fast, Noah. And I don't have as many droplets as Noah does, but I think I'm running like 6 droplets now, which is. For me, that's a fair amount. That's a fair amount because anytime we really want to do something new or do a segment, I throw up a droplet, and sometimes we end up keeping it because it's great software. And so, $5 a month is really an unbelievable value. And I'm still coming from that old school where stuff was just unbelievably priced, thousands of dollars a month just for a terabyte of transfer. I remember when we paid $1,000 for transfer.
Yeah, when we were out at Scale, Alex was with me, and so we were going around to the different booths or whatever, and Alex got a bug in his ear about MB. And so we were talking about what it does. And Stephanie goes, well, how do I do that? And I said, well, you'd have to set it up on a server. And he goes, well, I don't have a server. How much are those? We go price one out. And I'm like, well, we could, but you could go over here and you could use it. So I was explaining DigitalOcean to me. He's like, well, can we set it up now? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go back to we're sitting in the hotel room, and from having no experience of administrating a server whatsoever, he had a working MB server, and he actually set up a web-based transmission client
nice
to download stuff, and he did all of that in I'd say about 30 minutes with I gave him a couple little pointers, but really he did it all himself and just kind of figured it out from the DigitalOcean's FAQs and then the tutorial that MB had on their site.
See, the thing about it is because you can just really get a system deployed in no time. I, on a wild hair, was like, let's see what the process is to go from Fedora 22 to 23 or whatever it was at the time. I can't remember. And then go from cloud to server or server to cloud, whichever I did. I think it went cloud to server. I think that's what I did. And then I was like, let's just see what this is like just to try this. And then I decided, well, now that I've got server, let's try Cockpit. And I had Cockpit up and running in like no time. And I'm like, well, now that I can deploy containers inside Cockpit, I'll deploy MB. And I deployed MB in Cockpit on a Fedora system running on a DigitalOcean droplet, and the whole thing, because at no point there's like a spot where you're like, oh, this part, God, you never run into that when you get a great crazy idea, you can just go try it, and if it sticks, the systems are powerful enough that you can throw them in production and they're great. And then, like Noah's saying, once you're up and running, their tutorials are so excellent that if you get any kind of sticky points, they're gonna have a guide. Like I've been talking about some of these, they got these up for Ubuntu as well, but I think this is super legit. How to secure Nginx with Let's Encrypt on CentOS 7. Really good guide, really well documented. Imagery, they make code and commands obviously broken out. They have screenshots of these SSH ncurses prompts. All of it. It is an example of the great stuff they have over at DigitalOcean. They have really good stuff, and you can get started when you use our promo code LASTDigital. So go over to DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code LASTDigital. Support the show, keep us on the air, and get yourself a $10 credit. Try out that $5 rig for just free. Or like I said, they have an hourly credit too, so you could try out a pretty nice rig for just a few hours and use that credit up. No problem. Go get a crazy one. They got one with like 640 gigabytes of storage or something. I can't remember. Or 640 gigabytes of memory. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I think it's terabytes of storage and 640 gigs of RAM. You could go crazy. Wow. I'd love to have a reason to try it. We should come up with an episode where we have an excuse to try that some reason. Just to try it. I don't even know what we'd do. But we can come up with something.
Yeah, I'm sure we can, yeah.
Maybe like an entire terminal server and all the desktop sessions run out of RAM. Could you imagine running your desktop out of RAM on the connection they have at DigitalOcean? Somebody should try it. DigitalOcean.com, use the promo code LASTDigital, and record the whole thing. That'd be awesome. Let's talk about something that's a little on the ordinary side for our desktop pick. However, I agree, producer Q5Sys picked this one, and I think if you're not into that cloud stuff, you're not like Noah over there walking around wearing Google Glass, having your fridge connected to your Google Calendar, telling about your appointments when you go to get your OJ in the morning. If that's not your bag, if you're more of a local data,
I don't have that actually.
No, but you used to. You used to. You did. And nobody will let you forget it. Nobody's going to ever let you forget it. And, every time I laugh, I go to Best Buy, I look at the Samsungs, and I go, now I know. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Anyways, so maybe you want to go on the other end of the spectrum. Maybe you like yourself the offlines. You want to back it up to a thumb drive or something like that. Export your data like they used to do back in the 90s. Well, this is a really slick day organizer that does just that. And I know you're thinking, a day organizer, Chris, what the hell's the matter with you? Well, it turns out for me, I can think of like about a few days into the future, and then like I know on Tuesday, I need to do a brain dump. Ange and I have like a few things I want to talk about after Tech Talk to just, make sure we have like a few processes worked out for recording. And I know about them right now, and I know I want to talk about them on Tuesday, right? I'm sure you've probably been in this position before, Noah. And a traditional calendar appointment, like a Google Calendar appointment or an appointment on your phone, it doesn't really feel like it's conducive to creating a note about that day. And that's one of the things I really like about Osmo is, so let's say I go over to Tuesday, February, or I'm on January because I was dorking around. Let's say I go over to February on Tuesday the 23rd, right? I can go in here and I can not only make an appointment, but I can just put in a large block of text in here. And I can actually, put quite a bit of information. Now watch this, Noah. And I have an example I have a screenshot in the show notes. But so I can put a large block of text in here. I can also do things like I can make sure this is like this might be the really important thing I want to talk about. It has a highlight function there, and I can highlight certain areas. It's got an agenda like breakout thing. You can clear out all the text. You can insert a timeline if you want to talk about things at a certain timeline. That's kind of a neat feature. So you insert a timeline, it asks you what the timeline is, and then it automatically creates it. And I can create the agenda right here. And again, this is all just text in here. Of course, it also supports doing, and that's assigned to Tuesday the 23rd. So when my calendar reminder for Tuesday the 23rd comes up, I have this nice large block here. And I can also do things like I can set tasks, I can manage contacts, and I can just take notes in here. It's called Osmo. And one of the things
Osmo, right? OSMO?
Yeah, OSMO. And one of the nice things about it is I can go down and, of course, I can export everything out to just general text. I can determine where the data is stored at, all that stuff. Yeah, it is a nice local data.
All my life.
Yeah, I thought so too, right? And now for me, I kind of like stuff synced to my phone. This isn't going to do that. It's not a global calendar solution that's backed by the power of the cloud. It's something free. Now you could export the file out and manage to sync it to your different devices and come up with your own solution. But you can find it at clayo.org/Osmo.
Yeah, I just installed it. I'm super impressed. This is actually something I'd use.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So check it out, and thanks to producer Q5Sys. Although, for the suggestion, I noticed that they don't have a... Well, they haven't shipped a version for a while, but when you get something like this, that's almost a good thing. And it uses a plain XML database to store all the data, so you could, in theory, open it up if you wanted to and dig through.
It installs just fine on 1404. So
yeah, and it's in the Arch repository. I think it's just in the community repository. It's been around a while. So something that's kind of new and would be perfect to run on like a VPS or a droplet or your own LAN server. Or, I don't know, probably all kinds of things you could come up with. But I thought this was really neat, Noah. It's Logio. Log.io, real-time log monitoring, supports systemd. And as you kind of guessed by the name, it gives you a real-time live updated log in your web browser. It has harvesters that watch for log file changes and send new log messages to the server, which then broadcast to web clients. Log messages are tagged with stream, node, and log-level information based on user configuration. Log.io has no persistence layer. Harvests are informed of file changes via Notify or iNotify, and log messages hop from harvester to server with web client via TCP and Socket.io respectively. So it has a simple TCP interface. It uses a stateless TCP API to receive log messages, and it makes it really easy to write third-party harvester code for it. So if you're trying to come up with maybe a central logging solution or something like this could be the front-end live log. And you could actually pretty easily write your own harvester plugins to pull out data you want. So either something really simple, just to look at your system log, or maybe to build a LAN log monitoring solution. Log.io. So it's logio, logio.org. Seen something like this before, Noah? You seem like you're familiar with this.
Yeah, I have. I've seen it before, and it's one of those projects that I've always had at the edge of my brain, in the back of my brain, saying I have to deploy this at some point because it would probably save me a ton of time, probably be really useful. And I've never.
Not only that, not only will it save you a ton of time and help you track down things, but just really quickly, I guarantee you it will make you more money. I guarantee you it will lead to more billable hours, and it is phenomenal if you have a breach or some sort of problem, like malware gets on your system, to be able to see what all the different systems reported at the same time. So have them all synced up at the same time too, via NTP. I mean, it is, to be quite honest, it was required by the FDIC audits for the bank I worked at. And the solutions back then super sucked. Super sucked. We tried everything from like Oracle DB backed solutions to early versions of flat file database. It was everything that we tried, and it was so monstrously horrible. This is much better now, and systems are much easier to work with this kind of data. And this code exists. There wasn't anything like this back then when we did this. So it's a huge deal. And but from a contractor's perspective, you come away looking like you're on top of everything, because you can start saying, hey, we're seeing this error in your logs, and this is something we need to take a look at. And not only that, but just on the side, it's also a great excuse to just pick up the phone and talk to the client that you haven't had a great reason to call, that hasn't checked in for a while, and now you can say, hey, we're monitoring your systems, and and then honestly, some of the places I worked for, they billed for just the monitoring, just to monitor the systems. Sure. They charged a monthly flat rate, and then of course they used that to identify billable issues, and then they went in and got more billable for it. So
you want to know a totally off topic? Well, not really off topic, but it's kind of off topic. You know what my secret to starting that conversation back up after we
what?
For a while?
What?
Donuts, Tim Hortons. I'm not even kidding, man. It works every time. I go over there, I take a dozen donuts. I'm like, hey, my name's Noah. I'm your account rep, and I just want to let you know that we're the ones that maintain your network. And I just thought I'd stop by and bring you guys some donuts. The reaction is the same every time. You brought us these? These are for us?
Donuts always where I...
And then like a day later, because my business card is attached there, like a day later, 2 days later, they're like, the fax machine doesn't work, or the printer doesn't work, or some really simple issue. Yeah, it's great.
So the way to the new clients is through their heart. I was so I took Lady Jupiter, and so we picked up Lady Jupiter, went to scale, and they're like, so this is your first time owning a Class A. Just there's like 1 million systems on these thing, and 200 of them are going to fail on your first trip. That's totally standard, and you just bring it back. We'll take care of all of it. And we're like, okay, and nothing fatally died. Our water pump started to go out towards the end, but it was towards the end. So we took it back last week, and Rekai's been out. And so the timing kind of worked out. I actually moved into the studio for like 4 days, or 5 days. So we took it on Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I actually stayed here. Wow, I actually stayed here 7 nights. So then went down and picked up Lady Jupiter from the service center last night, which is like a 6-hour ordeal to go down there and get back. It feels like we go on a road trip, because we get back and we're just exhausted. Like, oh man. Anyways, I get down there and it's a new service guy. I'm like, oh no, this is no good. He's going to forget everything. He's going to, because, there's continuity that's been lost.
Right.
And so we walk in, he's like, hi, my name is Hez. I'm the new service manager here at Sunset RV. And, oh, okay. He's like, would you like a donut? Up come the donuts. He had donuts ready to go. And I was like, this is my man. Yeah, I'll take a donut. And then so we were good. Everything worked out just fine. They fixed everything they could. There is one problem they can't fix that I wonder if you and I could solve. It's literally like a signal interference issue with the LED lighting system and the antenna, and a buzz in the audio system. I think maybe we could figure it out. We'll have to see.
In the master bedroom?
Yes.
I was right.
Yeah. Yes, this is in the master bedroom. Yeah, they couldn't. I knew they wouldn't be able to fix it. I knew they wouldn't, because it's like it's a weird problem. So yeah. But it's all good, and I got donuts. You're right. That is a good trick, Noah. That is a good trick. All right, Logio or Log.io and Osmo. Yeah, they kind of rhyme. Those are our desktop and weekly spotlights, as well as Endless. You can usually find those at jupiterbroadcasting.com/lastpicks, but nobody's been updating it, and Noah and I don't have time to do that. Ain't nobody. If you'd like to help us, it is up on GitHub. You can fork it, update it, and we'll get that new version up there. You can find it at jupiterbroadcasting.com/lastpicks, and we get that updated with all our previous picks It is the awesome. But Noah, with the picks all done, let's do the news.
The news in this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com, Noah. Everybody go to last.ting.com. Last.ting.com is where you go to support this show. But you can also get yourself a discount, about $25 off a device or a Ting line. What? Wait. You don't know about Ting? You don't know about Ting? Noah, tell the people about Ting. No, you tell them about Ting. I always tell you.
Right. So I basically way back when, I think I've said this story once or twice on air, and I used to fall asleep listening to Last, and when they first came
Wait a minute, are you saying? Anyways, continue.
I used to fall asleep listening to Last, which is not to say that Last was unentertaining. It's just that was what it was.
No, you're just saying you took me to bed. So you're saying like sort of what I'm kind of okay. So just so I can picture it, so like you're laying there,
yeah,
and you're listening to me. And you're laying next to Sarah while you're listening to me?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Okay, good.
Remind me to tell you something off air about that. Anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm falling asleep listening to Last, and all of a sudden you make the ad read about Ting. And so I look over at Sarah and I'm like, hey, I need to go investigate this. So I get up and I like sit up in bed and I'm on Ting and I'm like, this is amazing. I need to do this. This is
great. I didn't know this. So, I don't think you've ever told me this part.
Oh, really? Okay. So at like 3 a.m, I sign up for a Ting account, and I just kind of jump all in. I'm like, well, let's just try it. So I port my actual cell phone number, like not like a test number, to just try it out, like my actual cell phone number. I port it over. And the only phone at the time that I was going to spend money on from them, because I hadn't quite decided what I wanted, was like a little flip phone.
Oh, sure, yeah. That's a nice way to get in, too, because, like, they're like under $60. You just pay for what you use. Nice and easy.
Right.
Good toe in the water.
And it was a great way to just kind of judge coverage and stuff like that. So the phone comes, and I tried it for probably less than a week and decide, yeah, this is the way to go. So I end up ordering a smartphone, but then I figure for $6 a month, I'll just leave the little flip phone activated. Why not? So I get my S3, and I have the little flip phone. So fast forward a couple of months. I go to Linux Fest Northwest, and the coverage there, cell phone coverage, is horrendous, and so my regular cell phone totally dies, like it's totally dead. But
I remember this
phone from Ting is still working, and that's working all right. So I get in the car, and you had gotten sick, so you're driving, and so Angela goes, "Oh, I need cell phone number."
I couldn't drive. I was so sick, I couldn't drive.
Yeah. So somebody was driving you home. Angela was driving you home. So she goes to get cell phone numbers from everyone, and the only phone I have available to me is the phone I haven't charged in like a week, because it's this little tiny flip phone thing. And so I give her that number, and then I was able to have cellular communications to be able to drive home. And then it just kind of launched from there, because then I got my wife on there, and then I got my sister on there, and then I got my mother on there, and I got my in-laws on there, and now Alex is on there, and everyone I run into, I'm like, yeah, I should sign up for Ting. And I have also found a dirty little hobby of going on eBay or Amazon and buying phones at like $15 or $20. You can find a phone, an unlocked GSM phone on for like
it's
$5.
Great, dude. It's like you know what's funny is
I have
like
a collection now.
Noah shows up, I'm like, okay, what new phone do you got? What do you got now? And they're not like me. When I get a new phone, it's like $600. I'm like, oh, what did I do? And you're like, it's like $20.
So, and now my latest thing, this past week or so, or the past couple weeks really, has been what other things can I do with unlocked GSM devices? And so I got a buddy of mine. He can start his car from the remote, and has an app that he could do it from his phone, but the app wasn't working right. So we're in the process of soldering. We took his spare remote, and we're soldering the start button to a
naturally,
Raspberry
of
Pi
course,
with a GSM chip, so that he can SSH into his Raspberry Pi and start his car remotely.
Obviously.
And all possible because it's only $6 a month, and the Raspberry Pi is only $20. So if it doesn't work, we're out like $30.
And you're only paying for what you use. And then like you want to shut the project down for a little bit. They got an awesome dashboard. You shut it down, no big deal.
Which, by the way, means we're not paying for minutes or messages.
Right.
And that's something you won't get with any other cell phone company. You buy into the pool of minutes and the pool of messages, whether or not you want to use messages or
and it's
minutes.
just with $6 for the line, and you just pay for what you use with no contract, no early termination fee. Last.ting.com. Go there and check it out. Before we go, our girl Kyra has got an app pick. I'm not Mr. Google here. You know this. I've tried to de-Googlefy a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. However, there is one thing that's so damn good. It's creepy, but it's so damn good. It's like my favorite Google product in the whole world. And our girl Kyra is here with the app pick of the week.
If you're running out of space for photos on your phone, this is the app for you. I'm Kyra, and this is the Ting download.
Buckle up!
Google Photos solves your space issues. pushing every photo you take into the cloud so you can free up storage on your phone. It does a lot more than just store your photos though. It also curates, edits, creates little slideshows of your travels, and more. Take some pictures and let Google Photos work its magic. You can easily create albums to organize your photos and make collaborative shared albums that can be viewed and updated by family and friends. You can also find your photos by visiting photos.google.com or by signing into the Google Photos app on another phone or tablet. Google sorts and categorizes your photos using its intelligent search tool. It scans everything it sees and groups photos by people, places, and things. It's slightly creepy, sure, but it's also super handy.
It is.
You can get specific with the search bar and still find relevant results. You'll be surprised what Google's image recognition and your searches will turn out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The Assistant tab is where you'll find edits and presentations of your photos, created by Google just for you.
All right.
Discover collages, stories, animated GIFs, and more. Some are wonderful, some are weird, and it's definitely worth a look. Google Photos is free. It offers unlimited high-quality storage, and you can upload all your old photos and albums too. Grab the app on Google Play and the App Store. Links are in the description below. Like, subscribe, comment. You know the drill. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Last.ting.com. So, this really is, it's a really, really nice app that they make. And it also gives them a unbearable amount of information about you, the locations, the people you're with, and a whole new level of all the things around you. And it was actually the main talking point we had in episode 233 of Tech Talk Today. Titled appropriately, The Creepiest Best Thing. And I go into, it has the ability to recognize, it's unbelievable. I demonstrated some Christmas photos that it tagged appropriately as Christmas that had no Santa Claus, no Christmas tree, nothing like that in it. And it's solid. So it backs up your photos too, which is nice. It just gives Google all of the information, location, face tagging, all that.
I redid my office a year or so ago, and we painted it and put new furniture and stuff like that. And I was trying to show somebody a picture of it, and I just typed orange wall, gray wall, and desk, and it found the picture of my office. And I'm like, geez, man, like it's crazy.
They know all the things. They know all the things.
At the same time.
Go check it out. Also, you can grab go to last.ting.com to support the show. You can get the GSM and CDMA cards, put any device, GSM or CDMA that supports the Ting network, you can check out on their site. Just go to last.ting.com to get started. And a big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. So there's a news story that we've got to start with here that the chat room's been talking about all morning. In fact, the whole internet's been talking about it all morning. It's big news. Linux Mint, the project, has been all kinds of hacked. It started with an announcement about ISOs. If you download Linux Mint on February 20th, then you downloaded a Cinnamon Edition, 64-bit. Then you downloaded an ISO that has a Trojan in it. So it only appears to affect, again, Linux Mint 17.3 Cinnamon Edition x64. And we'll have the MD5 sum in the show notes if you want to check these to see if perhaps you downloaded a bad version. And then very quickly after this, it came out that also the forum had been compromised and that anybody with a username on their forum and password needs to change those. And the forums include an encrypted copy of your forum password, not sure which, your email address, your personal information that you might have put in their signature profile, perhaps your birth date, any information you've written on forums. All of that has been compromised. And here's what happened, you guys, is pretty quickly after this, it was discovered that via a WordPress compromise, the attackers were able to get access to the machine. They got usernames and passwords from the configuration files and also put the user information up for sale online for about $18 in Bitcoin. Not a lot of money. And there is some indication that perhaps a few things were low-hanging fruit. The software that was included on the ISOs is a Trojan called Tsunami. It's an IRC bot. They're essentially the attackers, you could probably reasonably guess, were trying to maybe create an army of botnets with Linux Mint downloads. Mm-hmm. Linux Mint has been undergoing some server issues lately. A couple of weeks ago, we didn't really cover it because I don't really like covering DDoSes because it kind of gives attention to the DDoS, which is the entire point of a DDoS. So a couple of weeks ago, Linux Mint was being DDoSed while we were on the air. We didn't really talk about it because I just felt like it was just given the attacker's attention.
Yeah.
So it started with that, and then now this week we have seen the compromise here. And now, before we go any further, and maybe I'll try to reiterate these things, but I want to give credit to Clem for being very transparent. He took to the blog. He stayed up all night long responding to comments. Literally, he was responding to comments.
Everyone, somebody makes a comment, he gave an individual response.
Yeah, and super clear and transparent, super honest about it, shutting things down as fast as he realized what was happening. He seems to be pretty on top of it, too. He's identified what the actual Trojan even was, the Tsunami Trojan. And I'm going to give you more information about that here in a moment. But I just want to, so before we go any further here, I just want to give Mint and Clem the credit for when something bad does happen, they've been really transparent and responsible about how they've disclosed it, including they even, I have it over here, there's a new IT security alerts channel for Telegram, and they quickly posted to that to let everybody know what's going on. So they've been trying to get the word out, not just on their blog, but in other places. So when we look at this, what we can kind of tell is it appears that they got a lot of things. They got the MySQL root password. They got access to the host that runs WordPress. They got access to the forum. They got access to ISOs. They had a copy of the 32-bit ISO on their server, so it looks like they were planning to also put the Trojan on the 32-bit version of the ISO. They just hadn't gotten to it yet. They got access to the Mint website and changed the HTML source to point to their bogus ISOs. Publish that. There's a lot of things that happen here. It starts with ISOs that have been compromised and it quickly expands into an infrastructure that appears to have been ripe for the picking. Don't you kind of agree? Noah, what are your thoughts? Your reaction, sir?
I'm honestly, I'm really disappointed that this happened. I mean, so to some degree, and kind of, piggybacking onto what you were saying, really, this kind of thing can happen to anyone. Is if attackers set their sights on you, there's a bunch of steps that you can take to try and mitigate it. But at the end of the day, if you have a really determined crew, bad things could happen. And really, what demonstrates character is how you respond in the face of that. And I think that's been top notch. I don't think we could have expected anything different. But so first of all, the potential scope of that attack, of being able to literally from the ground up install software embedded into the operating system itself, I, as a seasoned Linux person, would probably not have caught that. I mean, there's some people that said, well, I used wget or I used this to download, and so I noticed the IP was different. Man, I got to tell you, I got way too many things going on in my life to be paying attention to stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even notice.
What's funny is I easily could have been bit by this because I've been reloading and loading different distros and OSs on this Librem 15 for a week. And February 20th was yesterday. And I could have very easily have downloaded Mint and tried it on this machine and could have been bit by this.
Right.
I have linked in the show notes. Here's the other thing, Noah. This malware, this Trojan, dude, this is not new. This Tsunami Trojan has been around for years and years and years and years. I've linked to a write-up that kind of goes into details of how it works in the show notes. But on top of that, this thing's so old. In 2011, it was ported to the Mac, and it was starting to affect Macs. I mean, this is something that is... This is like an old tool that's well known, and a WordPress exploit is an old tool that's well known. And here's where I want to go with this. I can only say this because I am in the same position myself. When you take on too much stuff, when you do too much, something has to slip. You just, a one human being like Clem can only keep track of and manage so much stuff. And now he's got some very popular distributions under his belt. Mm-hmm. He's got several versions of those distributions. He's in the process of updating them and working on new versions. He's got X apps that he's now managing and maintaining. And at the end of the day, something slips, and that oftentimes is infrastructure. And it is an example and an unfortunate result of a team that is overworked and can't properly spend the time on all of the things that they need to spend the time on. People in the security community are really ripping them up for this. Not for a few reasons. A, for the low-hanging fruit, but B, there could have been more done to verify the identity and source of these files to prevent them from altercations that just simply wasn't done by the Mint team. Mm-hmm. Their database password was really bad. And less than 6 characters or something around there. And I looked at that, and I had to do a double take when I looked at the exploit and I looked at their database password. I couldn't believe that's what they were using. There's a lot of small things that all added up enabled this exploit, and I don't know. I don't have a lot of insight here, but what I feel like is the Mint team could be really served by some super savvy infrastructure people that come work with them to really host this stuff. And part of the reason I think the damage is not as widespread as it could have been is simply because so much of their software comes from upstream. And so some of the damage is just by that in its very nature limited. But it's real bad. And to be honest with you, Noah, even once the exploit was initially found, not all of the action I thought that was taken was enough. It took commenters to point out that other things had been compromised and that other servers needed to be shut down after the initial exploit was found. Not a super good response there. That was a little disappointing too.
Let me jump to the other side of this just for a minute. Because as you're talking through this, simple database passwords and stuff like that, if you think about it, how many times have we set something up for Jupiter Broadcast? How many times have I set something up for Jupiter Broadcasting and given you a ridiculously simple password? And because at the time that it was implemented, we never really see it becoming anything big. When we set up the FTP server, it's just to send you files back and forth. I'm not really thinking about it.
But at the same time though, for example, when we did the Mattermost episode, I set up a Mattermost server, but I'm not. And I gave a link out to some people to test it, but that's not the server that's going to go in production because I didn't set it up to be in production, and so I'm not going to release it in production, and that's why we've been working with some pretty cool people in the community to properly set up a secure Mattermost server before I put it in production.
And I mean, now that you mentioned that, I guess, and look what we did with the phone server. I mean, I was so paranoid about having used simple passwords for stuff I didn't even leave it turned on, except when you were doing for shows, until I had a chance to go through and vet it and go through and and set things up a little bit more properly.
Yeah, but we have. There's some things you can do when it's behind your own firewall and it's on your LAN. And then there's some things when a few thousand people are going to be banging on this thing.
Well, that I guess that was my point. Did he know at the time? Was that the same database server that he set up when it was an idea in his basement and there was 5 people that
No,
were
he's
down?
just like me. It's like I use WordPress too. And I'll tell you what, when I once every 3 months get 5 minutes to go, wonder what I feel like doing right now, and I don't have something I have to do, guess what doesn't come up?
Yeah.
God, I feel like updating all my WordPress plugins. It's just not, and so part of it is you rely on the goodwill of community, and part of it is you try to clean up any low-hanging fruit that you know of. But the long and short of it is, there's always going to be somebody out there who's going to take a poke at you, like this guy who's selling the database on eBay, or whatever. It's not eBay, but whatever he's selling it on. I have it in the show notes. The guy's like, he's a dick about it. He's like, can't stop me, smiley face. Like, I'm just going to keep going. You can't stop me. And here is, the Linux Mint project making a great desktop operating system for people that just want a good, solid Linux-based OS. They're not Monsanto. They're not Nestle. They're not people out there destroying the world. It's freaking Linux Mint, and they're still getting attacked. So that's unfortunate. And by the way, one of the things is because it is Linux Mint, it means the Linux community's taking a look, and so the Trojan, all the stuff, all the information's already online. Like, people have posted up on Git, and you can look at the code for the Trojan. We have in the show notes. You can just check if this file exists on your file system. You've got it, and we have that information in the show notes. So, like, the community response in the last 24 hours has been pretty damn impressive, and they're really covering it from all angles, and it's kind of neat to see it. And it's gone from like hey, we have this ISO issue to, it looks like we've been pretty screwed.
I really hope that they decide to pursue this a little bit further and go after these people, because this is, that
is interesting that they're at the present, implied from Clem's notes is they're not talking to the authorities.
Well, see, now I got the impression that they were evaluating it and hadn't made a decision yet.
Yeah, that's probably true.
He used phrases like if we decide
this seems to me like an obvious, like, if somebody did this to JB, I absolutely would work with the authorities, just because it is in my estimation pretty similar to going in and defacing a storefront.
Oh, for sure. But I wonder if there isn't a legal cost associated, or I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they're facing, but I hope that they ultimately decide to go after these people. You're right. There's no reason to go after people like that.
No. And I maybe there's a deeper story to it. I would like to think about and speculate, maybe on Linux Unplugged or something. What could we do as a community to have an infrastructure where you always know the ISO files you're downloading are reliable and they're from the source? Like, we have MD5 sums and stuff, but nobody does that. Like, what could we do there?
Well, if you can compromise the ISO, you can compromise the MD5, right?
I suppose if you could replace the I suppose if you have access to the site and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's some solutions here that I think we could probably come up with some interesting ideas. I might talk about it more on Unplugged. All right, so this was what was going to be our top story this week until the Linux Mint stuff happened, because it's way better than I expected. I'm legitimately impressed, and I don't know where this is going to go, but ZFS, as you all probably are aware, is going to be included in Ubuntu 16.04. And there's a little bit of info in this Ars Technica article, but the new long-term support version of Ubuntu is coming out in April, and Canonical just announced a major addition that will please everyone interested in file storage. Ubuntu 16.04 will include the ZFS file system module by default, and the open ZFS-based implementation will get official support from Canonical. Official support. Well, what does official support mean? So, I went to Dustin Kirkland's blog. He's part of Canonical's Ubuntu product and strategy team, and he reports to Mark Shuttleworth, and he went to his blog and talked about it. So he talks about what ZFS is. Most of us know that. So what does official Ubuntu support mean? Well, I thought it meant that they were going to have a DKMS module that would automatically rebuild after every kernel update, which is a little iffy. It works pretty well for me. It's never really been a huge issue, but I'm always like, geez, I have to depend on a software build after an update for my file system to be successfully accessed. A little iffy. Well, they're not doing it that way. They've changed their mind after reviewing some of the legalese. You are going to find that the zfs.ko module is automatically built and installed on Ubuntu 16.04. No DKMS. You will see the module load automatically if you use the ZFS file system. The user space ZFS Utils Linux package will be included in the Ubuntu main repo with updates provided by Canonical.
Wow.
As always, enterprise class technical support will be available from Canonical with Ubuntu Vantage Services supporting ZFS as well. No rebuilding the module.
They're all in.
They are all 100% absolutely in. All in. And so the question was why couldn't you be all in 3 years ago? Why? What's been the big delay? What was that legal battle? You remember? This has been a legal question. Mm-hmm. Well, it appears that because the kernel, because the way the linking is happening, essentially it comes down to semantics, and because the module is connecting, I have it in the show notes, but essentially, because the ZFS kernel module is not a derivative work of Linux, they feel like they can do this. And it's funny, in the blog post, Dustin essentially says, and this isn't up for debate. We're not going to debate this. We feel like this has been debated enough. Let's just go use it. And so that's sort of, some people are kind of like, okay, like that's sort of obtruse. Like like this isn't even up for debate. We're just going with this. You can find it on Dustin's blog if you're curious. Obviously, I could probably pull it up. And they're really pitching this as really the file system for containers on Ubuntu. That's a big push for them. But here it is. Here's the post. So it says the zfs.ko as a self-contained file system module is clearly not a derivative work of the Linux kernel, but rather quite obviously the derivative work of OpenZFS and Solaris. Equivalent exceptions have existed for many years for various other standalone, self-contained, non-GPL kernel modules, like probably the NVIDIA kernel module, right? Our conclusion is good for Ubuntu users, good for Linux, and good for all free and open source software. As we have already reached the conclusion, we are not interested in debating license compatibility, but of course welcome the opportunity to discuss the technology. Kind of like, we've looked at this, we've decided, we're not going to debate it anymore.
I mean, so the chat room points out, like, as he said is in his blog, that it's actually a derivative of Open Solaris. And so, but it's going to be interesting because I have, even aside from implementing it in servers, which is, where this belongs, there has been more than one time where I've needed to recover data off of a ZFS volume, and I would love to be able to plug that in my laptop and actually pull data off there. And there's just no easy, reliable way to do that right now. And if there, if we get support for ZFS on Linux, and I'm able to, is going to, in addition to being able to deploy servers, with a better file system, I think it's going to enable me to support the existing server architecture.
Yeah. Yeah, when people need to bail off those free BSD servers, your Linux box will be able to read that file system, no problem.
Right.
And if you're listening or watching right now and going, guys, what about ButterFS? See industry demand and previous episodes of this show to see why not ButterFS. It's fine for your Mattel Inside toy computers. All right, so let's keep talking about Canonical. This is actually a phone I want, and you're going to be able to get Ubuntu Touch on it. So Mobile World Congress is going on, and Sony's got this phone called the Xperia Z1. I think this is legitimately one of the best smartphones on the market. I've never been interested in having anything with any Sony software on it, so never bothered. But I'm talking integrated fingerprint sensor into the small power button on the side, good compact design, incredible camera. Oh, by the way, an incredible camera. Really fast, good fast charging, decent speaker quality, incredible screen, excellent build quality. The Sonys are really, really, really good phones that nobody really talks about. They're like the best non-discussed Android phones out there. And
probably because they're made by Sony is probably why nobody wants it.
Well, nobody. I mean, even me, knowing that, I would never buy a Sony phone because I don't want any Sony software on there at all. Guess what? Canonical has heard the call of the wild, not just for the Xperia Z1, but also for the One Plus One. And I think this is super, super cool. They're going to work with communities that already exist to get images working on these devices. And Noah, do you recall seeing a lot of 1+1s at scale running Ubuntu Touch?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if I saw a bunch running Ubuntu Touch. I definitely saw a bunch of 1+1s. And I've seen a lot of 1+1s basically every time after June of last year. I think they've been popping up all over the place. So there's definitely a community of Linux enthusiasts that have 1+1s.
Well, I'll take it a step further. I think the majority of them were running Ubuntu Touch because anybody that was pretty much there from Canonical was not everybody, but a lot of people there from Canonical had the 1+1 running Ubuntu Touch. And everybody in kind of our posse noticed it, and we were talking about it a lot, and it didn't even click that we might actually see something officially announced from Canonical about working with the community. Here's why I like this. This is why I like this a lot. First of all, I can get both these phones in the US, so that opens it up to a new market. That's nice. Second of all, I personally believe these are made of superior parts and components than some of the BQs.
Okay.
And then third, this is a really great phone, even if Ubuntu Touch doesn't work out. Like if I got to bail on Ubuntu Touch and want to go back to Android, this is great hardware. So this is not a bad investment hardware-wise to begin with. And performance-wise, it's got great specs. This is an Ubuntu Touch phone that I actually would like to have. This is the first hardware I'd actually like to have, and I'm really excited about it. And then last but not least, what I think is great about this, Noah, is this is Canonical actually coming through on their, if the community makes an image that's pretty good, we'll work with them. Because one of the things I've always pressed in all of the interviews is, what if somebody comes along, takes your image, and makes a better phone operating system and puts on a better piece of hardware than you're shipping? Are you going to compete with them? What are you going to do there? And they're like, no, we'll work with them. It'd be cool. Well, guess what? Community comes along, makes a 1+1 port, an Xperia Z1 port, and this is over on the insights.ubuntu.com blog. They're like, not only are they going to work with them, but they're announcing it at Mobile World Congress. They're announcing it here on their website. Good to go. So you know what? You just might see me rocking a Z1 in the near future.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'll play devil's advocate for a little bit. I'm glad to see that it's gaining some traction, and nothing would make me happier than to have an operating system I can trust on a mobile device. That said, we talked in the past about how we could see, giving up first class apps and that kind of thing on a tablet. Do you really think you could do that on a phone? Do you really think the operating system is going to meet your expectations for that of a phone?
To be honest with you, I'd probably do what I did on the Nexus 5, and I'd dual boot for a year or so, and try to do as much as I could under Ubuntu Touch, and then like, I'm on a road trip and I need Waze. Then I would probably boot into Android. But I think that's
a workable solution.
Yeah. And because if nothing else, that would mean anything that I'm really seriously private about, I could do under the Ubuntu.
Bingo. Yeah. Bingo. And as long as Android doesn't have access to the file system, that would work. Yeah. And that's been my biggest thing is I don't have anything pseudo private on any Android device whatsoever, and it's going to stay that way probably indefinitely. And so that's one thing where, because I don't have a predefined expectation of what a tablet is supposed to do.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Tablets are much easier for me. Yeah.
Well, except eat my money and drive me nuts. That's really all I've ever gotten out of a tablet.
But that means that is ripe for picking. Like if they could come in and offer me something good, there's still room for improvement.
Right. So that's kind of where I'm holding out. Although, actually, really, if you think about it, I could get into if the OnePlus One, that's a pretty decent screen size. I could get into having an Ubuntu very small, PDA-like device.
And keep in mind, these might legitimately have the specs to do convergence. These could be devices that you could get in this market that actually do convergence. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be willing to give that a shot. I mean, that's...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know where this is going, but man... I am glad to see some good hardware. They just announced the like an M4 Pro. I can't remember what they got a new version that's shipping soon. That's a Pro version of the phone, better specs. This is really interesting to watch where they're going, especially as it relates to the Linux desktop and convergence. Then if I was just going to get crazy and I'm just going all in, and I could combine it with something like the Mycroft project, an artificial intelligence project that would give you an artificial intelligence assistant, sort of like Google Now or Siri on your mobile device.
Yep.
That'd be pretty awesome. And what I love about what Mycroft is doing is they're working, instead of reinventing the wheel, they are working with existing projects and code that are just really great at doing a particular thing, and they're integrating that with the Mycroft project. This week, they've announced Mimic, which not only is very cool in principle, but could lead to like voice multi-factor authentication using your voice and things like that. The Mycroft project has released a video and it explains what Mimic is.
Mimic by Mycroft and Vocal ID. Mimic is a fast, lightweight text-to-speech engine based on Carnegie Mellon University's flight software. Mimic takes in text and reads it out loud to create the voice of Mycroft.
Hi, my name's Mycroft.
To improve Mimic and create an AI that sounds realistic, we are building a community of developers from all over the world. Mimic is a powerful tool that can also help solve other important problems. That is why we've partnered with Vocal ID to help Dr. Rupal Patel and her team to bring realistic voices to people with speech disorders. Vocal ID's technology allows them to create customized voices that better represent the people who use them. To use these voices, Vocal ID's clients need a fast, lightweight, cross-platform engine. This is where Mimic comes in. Vocal ID's clients can use Mimic as the engine that empowers them to speak with their own unique voice. We're going to grow Mimic to support more languages and platforms, enabling many people to have access to realistic voices for the first time. Please join us in developing Mimic by going to mycroft.ai/mimic.
Yes, that was Popey's voice.
I was
voice of Mycroft.
The fact Popey is not an AI because I've met him.
Hey, you've met him and he smells good. Those are things we know. Those are So it's called Mimic, Noah. It's called Mimic, and I think it's pretty damn cool. You can use it to create custom voices, all kinds of stuff, authentication, and they're integrating it with the Mycroft project. Right? How cool is this?
It's going to be. Do you remember the conversation that we had with him where he said that there are certain phrases that are actually live in code that it will not respond to?
I don't remember this conversation. What were some of the phrases?
If you tell it to open I think it's the pod bay doors.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
So here's the thing. This is one step closer to that becoming a reality because now it can talk back, right? And honestly, who hasn't seen Iron Man with Jarvis and wanted to control their house by talking to it and have the house talk back? Think about it. Chris, we're building people are building the infrastructure for that to be a thing.
Suspicious, Noah. Popey is in the chat room right now, and he says, "I promise I am not a bot." But if you think about it, that's exactly what a bot would say.
That is. Further proof is necessary.
Yeah. All right. So we'll keep an eye on that and see where it goes. Maybe Ryan can join us on Unplugged soon and talk more about it. I want to talk real quick about Microsoft and Red Hat making out all nasty style. They're bringing Red Hat Enterprise Linux to Azure. Yeah, that's right. You can now deploy Red Hat images. The Red Hat's Senior Director for Business Architecture and Microsoft's Director of Program Management for Azure, Corey Sanders, told TechCrunch earlier this week that the two companies are also working closely together on supporting customers who choose to go to Red Hat Enterprise Linux on Azure. Red Hat and Microsoft support specialists are actually sitting together to answer their customers' questions, Kumbaya style. Red Hat Enterprise Linux 6.7 and 7.2 images are now available on all Azure regions, except China and the U.S. government. I don't know why. No Azure for China or U.S. government, which has been making some headlines, actually. So you can go spin yourself up an Azure server, and you can actually, from the Azure dashboard, like an animal, you can actually license Red Hat Enterprise Linux, buy a license, get subscription to the Red Hat Enterprise Network, and deploy the ISO on a Microsoft server.
So a couple of things. First of all, right at the bat, as much as I love Red Hat, I very rarely pay for a Red Hat license. I'm usually running some sort of recompiled code like CentOS or Scientific Linux or whatever, because I oftentimes I don't really need the support. And the couple times that we have actually gone to Red Hat for support, it's been through in a setting like the university that had a cluster of chemical engineering servers that were doing chemical computations, and we built the entire lab on CentOS and proved that it worked, and they actually used it for almost a year and then said, well, we want support, and so then we went and relicensed and reinstalled with RHEL. But short of situations like that, I'm not sure, especially if I'm looking at spinning things up in the cloud. I don't think I would ever actually want to pay for a Red Hat license. At least I can't think of anything.
Bro, are you serious?
I mean,
Bro.
Off the top of my head, I can't really think.
I can think of one thing. CYA. Cover your arse, dude. Something happens and that S hits the wall and you don't have an answer for it. The fact that you can call 1-800 Red Hat Save My Butt and defer blame is worth thousands of dollars, my friend.
Oh, for sure. The customer support is amazing. I've worked with Red Hat support. There's definitely not a hit on it. It's very much worth the money if you need the support. I rarely find myself with my backup against the wall. Yeah, in that way. And if it's some sort of like very complex server, then usually it's a person that's willing to pay for Red Hat license to begin with.
Yeah. And tell you the truth, in actual practice. Mm-hmm. Once or twice I've called that 1-800 number, and in way more cases I've actually cross-graded or side-graded Red Hat Enterprise Linux systems that were installed over to CentOS repos and CentOS. And I've done way more migrations from Red Hat Enterprise to CentOS than the other way.
I guess I haven't done that, but that's definitely legitimate. I think it does underscore the fact that you're not getting short-sold if you're using a community variants of Red Hat by any stretch of the imagination. Now, that said, and I know that the rest of this is going to come off kind of fanboyism, and that's okay. I accept that. I think that Red Hat is going to be a really good influence on Microsoft. And the fact that they're going to work together.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think that, the thing is, I don't know if you've read CEO of Red Hat wrote a book about how he was.
Yes, I have the book. I own it. Yep.
Did you? Okay. So he was in the book. He talks about how he was formerly the CEO of Delta Airlines and how he was going to come in and clean Red Hat up. He was going to show those people how to run a business because all this community-driven nonsense, and he was going to show them. And the culture at Red Hat showed him. And it totally shifted his perspective. And he talks in the book about how he came there and he came in with this idea of a top-down approach and it just 180 degrees totally flipped around. And I think that that's the kind of culture that Red Hat inspires and the people. And so if you get Microsoft people sitting over there, I think it's going to have a good influence on them. And I think that kind of passion and that kind of excitement for open source and freedom and not locked into code and stuff like that, I think it's contagious. So I think that's going to be a really, really good thing overall.
You might be right.
The other side of that, because they could go both ways, right? Microsoft could be a horrible influence on Red Hat, but I guess, and again, I admit that this is fanboyism. I trust Red Hat to the point that I'm not really worried about that. I haven't met anyone at Red Hat that I'm worried that they're gonna jump ship and jump to bed with Microsoft.
You know what I think, Noah? At the end of the day, what it is going to mean when all is said and done, what's another cliche I could use? The matter of the fact is, what it's going to enable is refugees where their work is a Microsoft shop and they're going to the cloud and they want to go to the Azure platform. Those folks are now going to have yet another Linux distro to choose from. And one of the fascinating frickin' statistics that came out of all of this, and I want to make sure I get the number right here because I don't remember what it was exactly, but it's some outrageous number that now apparently 60% of the Azure platform, 60% of the servers deployed on Azure are running Linux. And if nothing else, we all have that feather in our cap. That's all the news for this week. I'm pretty excited to talk about the Librem 15. I have been looking forward to this day for a long time. And if you followed all of our shows since end of November 2014, you know this has been a topic of conversation. Frequently on Linux Unplugged, we've interviewed the founder of the Purism company, Todd, on Linux Unplugged. We've talked about this a lot on Linux Action Show. This is the representation of something that Noah and I want so badly. Extremely well-built hardware available for anybody to get a great out-of-the-box Linux experience. And we've talked about it a lot on this show. There's people out there trying to solve that problem. And this is a totally new take that's directly taking on the MacBook Pro. So is it possible? Could a company out of nowhere actually create a MacBook Pro killer built to run Linux? I'll give you my review. First, I want to thank our segment sponsor, Linux Academy. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. We've got a very special discount for the Linux Unplugged show. And I was like, hey, let's bring it over to Linux Action Show and see if the folks that watch the Linux Action Show can take advantage of it. And I think you really can. It is targeted right at our audience. They have over 2,332 self-paced courses, downloadable comprehensive study guides. This is stuff built around Linux, about Linux, the technology stack that you could use on top of Linux for people that use Linux by people that use Linux. And that is the key differentiator. It's not a feature. It's what they do. Scenario-based labs. You can work in their advanced live lab environments. You complete scenarios from beginning to end, so you get hands-on experience. Instructor mentoring is available. That's a huge deal. Graded server exercises, and this is a big one for me personally. I suck at tests. In fact, if there was one thing I would say, Noah, one thing you're like way better at than I am is actually like testing under pressure. Like I didn't even bother with the Red Hat certified courses because I just test horribly. I don't know what it is. Like I in practice I can use the skills and the knowledge, but testing, I fall apart.
You know what? I'm the same way. I really am. I'm not good at testing. I'm actually horrible at it. And partly because I will arrive at the same conclusion, but I won't always get there the same way, which throws me up in tests because sometimes they
have a very specific path they want you to follow.
But I have shied away from saying that too often because you never see the opposite. You never hear somebody saying like, listen, I'm dumb as rocks, man, but I can pass tests.
Well, actually, somebody in the chat room right now is
really?
Yeah, of course, the chat room, right? Yeah. Kernel Panic in the chat room's like, I love tests. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I love tests.
Yeah, right. If you're smart, there are smart people that can pass tests, and there are smart people that can't pass tests. What there are is dumb people that can pass tests, and so I feel like an idiot if I come out and be like, yeah, I'm actually smart. I promise. I don't test very well. But the other part of it is sometimes I don't understand. Sometimes I'll go about solving the same problem a different way, which also doesn't work very well for me. That's actually something I really like about Linux Academy.
Yes.
Because if you go through their courses, and I can tell you this is specifically true for the Red Hat one, they show you multiple different ways to arrive at the same conclusions or multiple different ways to accomplish the same task. They say, well, you can do it like this or you can do it like that. Yeah. And that's different from even the certified Red Hat curriculum that they go out. They'll show you, walk you through one specific way.
The other thing for me that was like hard as a contractor is my zone is talking about stuff that I understand, and what I like to do is I like to take a complex idea and a topic, and I like to understand it, and then I want to just break it down into a way that's really communicable to somebody maybe not even very technologically savvy. And so that was really my sort of power domain, quote unquote, as a consultant, is I would take you really got to do this advanced thing. And here's the simple business reason why you got to do it. And for me, that meant that if I had to go do something or I had to go sell them something that I hadn't actually done, I had the confidence and experience to know I could pick it up and I could learn it and I could meet my commitments.
Yep.
But that didn't mean I still didn't feel like a crazy amount of anxiety personally, like very nervous, hyper aware of all the things I don't know, all of the things that might go wrong, all of the things I might need to consider, not actually knowing all the things I need to consider because I've never done it before, but just still freaking myself out enough that I get a little sick to my stomach, right? Sure. This is where with Linux Academy, they have the scenario-based labs, they have the real-time feedback while you're taking the courseware. That to me gives you the hands-on experience that kills that anxiety. You combine that with the instructor help. You combine that with the detailed notes, the practice exam, the enhanced learning plans that can adapt to your availability, the fact that they allow you to choose from 7+ Linux distributions, they automatically adjust the courseware and the virtual machines, the fact that they have all of this stuff for Linux users, by Linux users, and they're always improving it. And that we have one of the best deals around. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring Linux Action Show. It's a great fit for our audience, and that's why they're here. Okay, so I often will play clips of videos. I don't very often get to play a clip of myself, but it turns out when you've been doing a show for a while, there is from time to time opportunity to do that. I want to jump in the Wayback Machine, and I'm going to take you back to, let me get the episode here, episode 340. So we're on 405 right now. So episode 340, 444 days ago, I believe, I announced that I had done something kind of cray-cray. And I'm just going to play it for you because I think it gives you the spirit of where I was at when I made this announcement. Instead of just sort of reiterating, I will go back in time and play myself. Here's the details. Yeah. Right now, they've raised $38,000 of $250,000. They have 38 days left, 15% funded, 48 pledges. I decided to back it last night.
Oh, nice. Well done. Okay.
Because I want to see if this is the question is I really fundamentally believe in hardware that's meant to be used with Linux. And I think people don't place enough value, even if you're using off-the-shelf parts. Right. If somebody is curating those parts and assembling them into something that they have tested and made to work with Linux, that's great. Yeah. So to me, that is value added, and I want to put my money where my mouth is and see if people building machines like this truly makes a difference. The specs, I put an SSD in there and I upped it to 8 gigs of RAM, which is the max. Yeah. But specs wise, I'll probably use it for a little while and then give it to my son, if they ship. And I figure if they do ship, we'll have a review unit here on the Linux Action Show. And we can tell you if it's really, truly, the perfect Linux laptop. They did ship. They did ship indeed. Here we are. And no, I think I still kind of, I align with those things. I love the idea of Linux purpose-built hardware. Like when they go to the drawing board, it's for Linux. Not just, hey, we make this really great Windows laptop that could also run Linux.
The difference is a computer manufacturer that makes a computer that can run Linux, or a Linux enthusiast that wants to make a computer. And how you set that up affects very drastically what you come out with the final product.
So for those of you who have not been following for 445 days exactly what's going on, I'm going to play a little bit earlier clip from that show that just sort of sets up what the Librem is just for a moment, because you can hear, I think, maybe when you listen, you might hear a slight amount of skepticism in my voice. But you can also sort of capture the moment of where we were at and why we wanted something like this. So I think it's kind of relevant before we talk about the machine.
All right. So while we're on the topic of crowdfunding, I don't know what to make of this. It's a laptop that promises to respect your essential freedoms. It's called the Purism, the company behind it, and they're launching the laptop called Librem. It's a 15-inch, nearly free of proprietary code laptop. Here's the design of it.
Oh, wow.
It echoes back to a MacBook Pro with a large trackpad, all metal case.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it starts at different price ranges. Purism is launching this on Crowd Supply. The idea is it's going to give you a laptop where you don't have to run any proprietary drivers and no binary blobs in your distro. It's based on an Intel i7 4712MQ processor, 15.6-inch screen, 4 gigabytes of RAM, and a 4 gigabyte spinning hard drive, although you can tweak these things. 3 USB 3.0 ports, HDMI out, an expansion SD card slot, and a pop-down RJ45 gigabit adapter, as well as a Theros-based 802.11n Wi-Fi, 720p webcam, HD audio, and a backlit keyboard. And it will be coming preloaded with Triskel Linux.
Triskel Linux, which actually it actually shipped with Pure OS or Purism OS. I go on to talk about how it doesn't actually totally respect your freedoms because it ships with an NVIDIA GPU. And I also talked about how the NVIDIA GPU was critical to my purchasing choice. Yeah, go ahead.
Can we stop here for a second and just talk about, I don't know if we've ever talked about this on the air. I know we've talked about it off the air, though. Right from the get-go, I had some concerns about how they were marketing that computer, because the people that are and I'm stealing this from you, this is not my thought, but the people that are very, very, very conscious about making sure that everything in the entire laptop is free from the BIOS all the way up to the operating system, stuff like that. Those are not the kind of people that are worried about the super high-end hardware. Most of them are content, at least, on 10-year-old repurposed ThinkPads, and anything better than that is a brand new machine to them. And then you have another group of extremists, which is kind of, I think, where you and I fall in, which is we want native support on Linux, but on extremely high hardware, and we're willing to pay for that if it exists. And it seems like they try to make a really expensive high-end hardware and then market it to people that wanted totally free code, but then they didn't even really quite meet the totally free code part.
So, and something I've talked about before, people who want a truly free machine are willing to buy a ThinkPad that runs Core Duo processors.
Right.
And people who want a MacBook don't really give a shit about what the BIOS is. And that's why I specifically stay. In fact, I kind of, watching it back, went into a bit of a rant about how important the NVIDIA GPU was, and I didn't give a shit because my machine is a tool, and I want to run video games on my tool from time to time. Yeah. And so I talked about how I felt it was a complete mismatch. However, they stuck to that so much so that they did Triskel-based PureOS, which uses Cinnamon and includes some improved drivers for the basic hardware of the Librem. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But basically, it improves the trackpad. And they ship it now with PureOS, and they make the ISO available for download. And it's a good Cinnamon implementation. It's pretty solid. So they did eventually end up raising for the Librem 15 $584,000. They had a goal of $250,000. I funded something called the Early Bird. And the Early Bird was for people who wanted to get it right away. And so when I funded my Librem 15, I was promised a 4-core, 8 threads total i7 processor with an Intel 4600 GPU and an NVIDIA GT 840M graphics processor. I also upgraded it to a 500 gigabyte SSD and 8 gigabytes of RAM. I made that order on November 22nd, 2014. My total cost was $1,824 for the Ultimate Linux laptop, with a dedicated NVIDIA graphics, a quad-core processor, a 500 gigabyte SSD, cheaper than a MacBook might be, really. Crowdfunding it completed and was expected to ship on April 2015. It actually shipped on February 10th, 2016. And here's where things started to go a little awry. So it shipped about 300 days later than expected. Not horrible. 445 days from when I backed it. Mm-hmm. The unfortunate thing about that is in that time frame, there has been 3 generations of Intel processors. Now, this shipped with Haswell. Mm-hmm. Skylake is the current generation as of this recording. So if I were to buy an $1,800 laptop last week, I would get Skylake. Mm-hmm. I got Haswell. Better than Broadwell. So instead of getting the 4600, I got an Iris 6200 GPU. A pretty decent upgrade. But the first knock is instead of getting a 4-core processor, I got a 2-core processor with hyperthreading. So instead of getting 8 cores total, I get 4 cores. Not a big deal, but I did specifically want 8 cores. Probably for me, the biggest disadvantage is I didn't get that NVIDIA GPU. So not getting that NVIDIA GPU was pretty limiting. It means I have to use the built-in Intel Iris. So that's kind of a bummer. I wouldn't have bought it if that was the case. In fact, I even state that in that episode, that the only reason I'm really the thing that pushed me over the edge was the
NVIDIA. Yeah,
because I want to be able to play games from time to time, and honestly, the open source NVIDIA driver is getting better and better. The other major change from when I bought it versus what I got, besides the ship date and the processor, is it doesn't include an Ethernet port.
Oh no! See that right there? That would rule the laptop out for me. I I can't get work done without an Ethernet port.
Yeah, well, I can't either. Actually, I quite honestly, the data set that I work with is too large. I have to have an Ethernet port. So right now I have it hooked up over Ethernet. What I did is there was something else included with the Librem that it wasn't originally on the spec. USB-C is on there right here. I got a USB-C port.
Oh,
yeah. So
that's probably their justification then.
Yeah. So I got this guy here. I got an Anker ANKER USB-C Ethernet adapter. It's a gigabit Ethernet adapter, and it has a 3-port USB hub built into it.
Okay.
So I got a 3-port USB hub. So now I got let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 6 USB ports total now. 3.0 USB ports. So, I was able to work around the Ethernet thing, but I had to. And that was, two things, just in full disclaimer, I would not have bought this laptop if I knew it was going to come without an NVIDIA GPU. I would not have bought it. And Ethernet. Those are 2 deal breakers for me. I need dedicated graphics, and I need a dedicated GPU just because of the type of work I do. So that was sort of a bummer. The Ethernet adapter, though, over USB-C, I'm not using USB-C for anything else.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know what? If this was actually a MacBook, I'd have to have some stupid external dongle too. So, okay, whatever. And it's got a decent Wi-Fi. It's got a Theros. It works great out of the box. The Wi-Fi connects every time. It's been a super solid Wi-Fi adapter. So that works. No special crap has to be loaded. That just works. But those of you that have been listening to Linux Unplugged, there was another major issue that I ran into. A big deal breaker. Surprisingly, the biggest deal breaker that I didn't expect. I did not see this one coming at all. And that was the mother effing fan. The fan is unbearably loud. So if you took a laptop and you maxed out the fan noise that you've ever heard, like just totally full blast, that's what it was from the moment you turned on the laptop. The fan didn't have the appropriate, I guess, firmware or whatever, because maybe it's not open source, from the ODM to properly turn the fan down. So it just ran full blast all the time, maximum fan mode, so loud I couldn't use it on air. It's just not even possible. So I did the only thing reasonable. I took its pants off. I took the bottom of the laptop off, and I began to investigate. Now, I want to point out, before I got this far, I tried everything. I tried Ubuntu 16.04, the beta. I tried 15.10. Of course, it had Pure OS. By suggestion of the chat room, by God, I even tried Windows 10. And I thought, Noah, if I have to come on the air and I have to say that the Librem 15 is a nice laptop, but you have to install Windows 10 to make it usable, I thought this is going to be devastating. And so as I'm installing Windows 10, I'm praying to the computer gods, please don't fix the fan problem. And so the installer boots up off the USB thumb drive, and the fan's still loud. And I'm like, okay, good. Okay, so far hasn't done anything. So then I install the Windows 10 desktop. It boots into Windows 10 for the first time. The fan noise still crazy, unusably loud. I'm like, okay, good. The fan is still crazy, unusably loud. Windows didn't fix it. I install all the Windows updates. It downloads some interesting drivers, reboots. The operating system boots up. Still fan. Fan still going crazy. Windows 10 did not fix the issue. Thank God. I immediately erased the hard drive and put Antigross Linux on here.
Good. I'm feeling better.
And now I took the only reasonable course of action, Noah. The only thing left to do is I took the pants off the bottom of this laptop. I opened it up. And I got to say, I'm looking at the layout here. I'm pretty impressed. Just looking at the bottom of this laptop, first of all, it was about 17 screws that I had to remove, but I could remove them.
All probably Torx.
Not so bad. Yeah, not so bad. No, there were tiny Phillips. But I have an open RAM slot here, so I might be able to go for more RAM. That's real nice. Right here is the hard drive. I could easily replace the hard drive. There's the Wi-Fi chip. Easy to replace that. And then down here is the battery. And then right here in the center, right there in the center, is the fan. One fan. The only thing I had to do is pull that one fan. So I pulled out the power cord. I disconnected the power connector from the fan. I'm hoping, kind of banking on, well, this thing does have an aluminum enclosure. Maybe that'll help distribute the heat. So right now, as I'm doing the show, I have it in low power mode because I've done a few things here. So once I disconnected the fan, mind you, this was my last resort. This laptop was literally unusable otherwise. It was so loud that if you walked into a huge room, say like a large living room, and this laptop was in the middle of the living room or off on a table on the side actually, you would walk into this large room and you would immediately hear this loud. Like, what is that? What is that loud? It was very loud. It was unusable. And the part of the problem is when you put it down on a table, that makes it even louder. It amplifies the sound. And so what I have done is I have unplugged the CPU power fan, and I've installed all of the P-State kernel stuff to manage my power states. Combining that with a GNOME extension, I can manually choose my different performance mode. So right now, I have my CPU limited to 14% maximum performance. I click high performance here, and now I have up to 3 gigahertz. It's a nice, I mean, the 2 cores this thing does have are super fast, over 3 gigahertz with turbo boost, right? There, I just hit 3.1 gigahertz right there for a second. And what I'm doing is I'm using INX to manage and monitor the temperature, to keep it below a certain temperature. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but so far, I've actually been able to play Star Trek Online, Borderlands 2, and Trine 3 without overheating my computer. And I did those things while syncing a huge ass Dropbox, a ridiculously inappropriate large Dropbox, installing software from the Arch user repository in the background, while also downloading Steam games. I was able to still manage to do all of that with the CPU fan disconnected. Now I know what you're thinking. This is ridiculous. You've spent $1,800 and you have to manually modify the machine to make it usable. That is true.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that is a true statement. However, it depends on your perspective. If you look at this as like a kit car, it's a one-off kit build, right? That I'm now driving.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. So basically, what you're saying is it is a stepping stone. It may not be perfect on revision 1, but we have a usable device that is shipped, and it has set in motion a belief system and a track that we'd like to see continued. And you can say that you have participated in the success of that track, and for that, it's good. And here's one thing along those lines. Here's another thought for you too. If we're going to go as far as modifying the hardware, one other thing you might consider doing, instead of disconnecting the fan altogether, just throwing a resistor in where that fan plugs in, and you would have a fan, but just maybe just have it just enough to get just a little bit of airflow, so it gets air moving through the case there.
So one of the other things that they've done that I kind of like, and it's funny because the Purism folks themselves have put in our comments on our very own show, this has been their statement. This is a screenshot I took from a YouTube comment that they made 3 months ago. The Librem is funded and shipping now. Reviews are coming in now, and they're very favorable. Yes, it is about the same retail price as a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air, but the quality and features are superior to a Mac. We invite you to check it out. To me, that's setting the bench pretty high. Benchmark is now build quality of a MacBook Pro.
Yep.
Again, the fact that they've been targeting freedom-seeking, free software foundation backing, Triskel using users is a mismatch with the product that they're delivering. Mm-hmm. They have a bit of a mismatch again here. So in this picture, what I'm showing you is there are 2 toggle switches on the side of this laptop. They've just been cut into the side of the laptop, and then the switches are just shoved through the holes. They are nice. What these do is these are physical toggle switches to physically turn off the camera and the microphone. So you always know those devices are disabled. It's a hardware cutoff for the microphone and for the camera. That's badass, man. I think every laptop should have that. Here's the problem. That looks like shit. It is a hole in the side of my laptop with some really cheap switches that could easily break off when I'm taking it in and out of a bag for over.
If they don't break off, even if you never used them, they look horrible. Looks horrible cut into the side of an aluminum laptop.
So when you're coming at it from we compete with the MacBook Pro in build quality, then that means everything is up for analysis. And there's a couple of things that fall down. Right here. The Ultimate Linux laptop is shipping with a Windows key. Why is that a Windows key? In the product images that I backed, it was a square. It looked like a square. It kind of actually looked exactly like the square that used to be on the iPhone home button before they got Touch ID. There's like a little square on the iPhone button. It looked exactly like that. Yeah, like a rectangle, yeah. It's a Windows button. The Ultimate Linux laptop has a Windows button on it. Not a big deal, but if you're going to say you're better built than the MacBook, then you got to pay attention to the details here.
You know what? I disagree. I think it is a big deal because I have people all the time. I make a very conscious effort not to refer to it as a Windows key, but the super key. And that is to try to break the Kleenex branding of computers. That all computers by default, the normal computers run Windows and have a Windows key. And if you want to hack together Linux on there, then the Windows key serves other purposes. No. I have a super key that does a predefined action depending on the operating system I'm running. Windows just happens to call it the Windows key. And we need to make that change in our minds first. And in our vernacular.
I like Kernel Panic in the chat room says I call it the logo key. That's not bad.
Logo key's not bad.
Yeah. But
that is disappointing.
So can we, along just comparing it to the fit and finish of a MacBook? I mean, I'm getting nitpicky here because, I mean, we're comparing it to a MacBook. You can't really tell in this picture, and this isn't going to be something that affects all of the laptops, but my escape key and my F1 key are almost completely recessed into the case. My escape key doesn't work about every other time. I have to hit my escape key at a particular angle to actually get it to register, which is a bit of a bummer since I like to be able to quickly tap that to do things. So the fact that it registers every other time, kind of a nuisance.
That I'm willing to say we should cut some slack on, if only because.
No, I mean, if you're going to compare it to a MacBook, I would take a MacBook back to Apple if my escape and F1 keys aren't really usable.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't necessarily reach out to them and see if they do something about it. But when you have a company many times smaller than Apple, small little manufacturing defects might come, like that. And as long as it's not a widespread.
Yeah, and then as the chairman has also pointed out, I mean, it's again not a huge deal for me. I don't really care. The F9 key does have an Internet Explorer logo on it.
Jeez, man.
Now again, for me, not a big deal, but you're comparing it. If you're gonna leave a comment on my video where I interviewed the founder, and you're gonna say they're shipping and they bid the MacBook in quality, then it kind of opens up the doors for me to compare it to a MacBook, right? I mean, I'm not trying to. I don't want to belabor the point, but last but not least, I was promised a backlit keyboard. I got a backlit keyboard, Noah. And it works kind of like this. There is a light behind the keys, but the keys themselves are not translucent, so it's just black squares that get lit up, and it actually makes it harder to type in the dark because the keys aren't lit, just the area around the keys is lit up. And so I can't actually even see the keys. I'm a touch typist, not a big deal, but it actually sort of nulls the entire point of a backlit keyboard if you just light the light behind the key and not the actual letter of the key. Doesn't actually help. So it's sort of like it has a backlit keyboard just as a feature on the box and not actually to make it usable. So there's that. Now, Noah, legitimately, when you and I are at a conference, we see a lot of MacBooks. I mean, it's the majority of the systems we see, right?
It depends on the conference. I mean, I think if you get into some of the fests like Self, and I think you see a lot of very, very few of them. In fact, even the brochures that they hand out, inviting speakers to come in, make fun of people that are going to bring it back. So, I mean, it depends on the conference, but certainly at the larger ones like LinuxCon and OSCon, they're all over the place. In fact, I think weren't we trying to find a Linux computer at one of the conferences? And we could find was MacBooks, and we found like 2 ThinkPads, but even they were running Windows.
And just a couple other problems. You can see here in this particular picture, the paint above my USB-C port is chipping off.
Mm-hmm. That again,
the MacBooks aren't painted; they're anodized aluminum.
Yeah,
that's not a paint.
I mean, it's fair critique. I think that might. I mean, there are some things that I think, like the backlit keyboard. I can't even think of an excuse for that. When you come to slight dings in manufacturing, defects or quality, then it's like.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, you know what I do actually really like, and I didn't really expect it. I like the size of the trackpad quite a bit. It doesn't really work very well outside of their own distro. It's missing some drivers. Really? Yeah. Like I under Pure OS, I can say use 2-finger scrolling or just use the side, and I have some ability to say don't don't take input when I'm typing. Under every other distro, I can only scroll on the side, like from a 90s laptop, and it just goes crazy when you're typing. Like if you just hover over it, it's registering as clicks all over the screen sometimes. Huh. So I suspect that will be improved. So I'm not so worried about that. But I do love the size of it. It's a good size trackpad. It's got that one click you push down. That's nice. It's got a SD MMC card slot. It has a headphone jack. It has 3 USB 3 ports. It has a HDMI out port. It has USB-C, like I mentioned earlier. It has physical toggle switches for some of these things, and it has a numeric 10 key. It's got a 10 key, which I actually really, really like. And now I'm going to get into the pros. It actually feels really damn good in the hand. It's not a unibody. The back bottom is screwed on. That's why I was able to fix the fan issue. But it legitimately feels great in the hand. It feels good to hold. It feels well built. And when it's plugged in, it feels pretty damn responsive. Even after I've disabled the CPU fan, I've been able to push it pretty well. I do have to watch things, like during the segment break, I had Firefox taking up 100% of my CPU, and it was... I think I got the system up to like 205 degrees Fahrenheit. So you could basically boil water on my CPU because Firefox went crazy. And I'm sure that it would void the warranty if this thing had a warranty. I though, and I think this is kind of a pro, I kind of look at this as like a kit car, and it's pretty unique. It's a one-off unique Linux laptop that really nobody else has. And so I want to just take a moment and tell you about the things that work well. It's well built compared to pretty much every other PC laptop, like Lenovo's or pretty much anything you'd find in the store. In terms of picking it up and feeling solid, it's just as competitive as anything else. When you have it plugged in and you're not really worrying about speed profiles and stuff like that, this thing, 2 cores be damned, screams. 500 gigabyte SSD. It's not a Pro, but 500 gigabyte SSD. It's great. It's fast. The LG screen feels and looks high end. It definitely has some off-axis viewing issues that a MacBook Pro does not have. It's not IPS. It's not an IPS display. But as far as non-IPS displays goes, it's damn good, non-glossy, 1080p, really sharp. Having USB-C is kind of cool, and it looks like, based on the side thing, it might even be able to charge over USB-C. I haven't tried that myself. Looks kind of neat. And last but not least, one of the number one features the Librem 15 offers me that's really important in a laptop. Oh, I'm moving the audio interface. You can hear me moving it around. It's genuinely easy to nuke and pave. I can pretty much load any distro on this thing and have no issues. Everything works out of the box. Yeah, it's Intel graphics. I remain very disappointed with Intel graphics. I honestly thought the reason why Intel graphics suck so bad is because I was on a high DPI 4K display on my XPS 13. And I thought, well, I can't play any games because I got an integrated GPU trying to go to 4K. Of course that's going to run like shit. Turns out, you run it on 1080p, stuff's still just crap. I got like Borderlands cranked way down. Stowe barely plays. It's totally unfortunate. And QuickSync helps with some GPU encoding stuff, but not much supports it right now under Linux. So definite downside there. But that also means I get a little bit better battery than I expected. In my testing, without a lot of battery management, say I turn the screen down to about 80%, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are on. Performance profile is not like super high, but I'm still getting good performance out of the computer. I'm getting 4.5 hours of battery life out of this thing. 4.5 hours of solid battery life. And I don't mean like 4.5 hours of it just sitting there doing nothing. I mean, I'm actually getting consistent 60 frames per second from the GPU. I'm installing software in the background. I'm installing Steam games. I'm doing system updates. And while doing all of that, I had GLX Gears running. And I had it running in a box so I would get a consistent 60 frames per second. So that way I could continue to push the GPU the entire time to burn battery. Because everything I use is hardware accelerated. I'm either editing video, encoding video, or using Chrome, which uses hardware acceleration for video. So I wanted to test the GPU. And with pushing the GPU, I was able to get 4.5 battery life. 4.5 hours of battery life. I don't have like laptop power mode. I don't have any special. I just have the Intel P-State stuff installed. And I'm doing like a little bit of battery management there. But that's it. And I'm pushing the GPU 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours of battery life. I have a one-off special computer that almost nobody else has. It runs Linux fairly well. I mean, it runs Linux great. It just doesn't do it as well as I want because it doesn't have RJ45 jack or NVIDIA. But it runs Linux well. Pretty much any distro I want out of the box works great. Battery life is acceptable. The build quality feels good. I mean, overall, pretty nice computer. It totally falls short in the fact that now I'm totally paranoid about the thermals of the thing because I've disconnected the fan because it's literally unusable. And the very fact that they were willing to ship it like that, I mean, the balls, the balls to say that it is more competitive than a MacBook and then to have it shipped with the fan blasting 100%, it definitely doesn't quite nail the spirit of what I was funding. I wanted it. The GPU was a big deal for me. They didn't deliver on that. They got lots of reasons, lots of justifications. But like I said in that episode of Linux Action Show, that was a huge selling point for me. So here I am to say, I think I feel a little burned. I feel like I wanted to support an initiative here, and I wanted to make a statement and say this is something that there is an audience for and that people demand. And Noah and I have said we go to these conferences, we see all these MacBooks. If there was something like the MacBook available for Linux users, it would be really great. And I wanted to test it. And I think I got a pretty good machine. I didn't end up with a computer that I would actually buy today. I wouldn't buy this computer brand new. I would buy ones very similar to it, but I have a very different use case for a computer with all Intel graphics than I do for a computer with a 15.6-inch screen. I want Ethernet. I want dedicated graphics. For something that's more portable, that's not where my requirements are. But for my actual work machine, that's a pretty high requirement. But now that I have it, I mean, I don't know. It feels overall like it's worth keeping. Do you know what I mean? Like now that I have it, it feels like it's worth having.
Yeah, I mean,
the keyboard experience overall is pretty good with the exception of the Escape and F1 key. The screen is pretty good. The performance is great. USB-C is fun to play with. It's got HDMI out. It's 1080p, which is what I need for production purposes here for shows.
Yeah, if you can use it without it overheating. So a couple things come to mind. The first is, I just reiterate one last time is, even if they don't get it on a one-off, it's definitely a track worth following, and it's definitely something I think that we all want to support to see it get better because, they might not get it on the first try, but if nobody bought the laptop, it would have never gotten off the ground. Now they can go back and, they can take this, they can watch this episode, they can take your critiques and go back to the drawing board and see if revision 2, we can fix some of those problems. And that's how you get a finally polished product is you get something out, you find out what people don't like about it. And to some degree, Chris, you are a very, very detail-oriented person to a degree that I have not experienced before. And there are plenty of times that I have found other laptops, and when I compare them, I'll give you a perfect example. When we went to one of the conferences, I physically touched and held and played with a Librem laptop, right? And at that time, I would not have told you there was a significant difference between a MacBook Pro and that the computer. And this is standing at a place where I had plenty of examples of MacBook Pros, and I could touch and play with it. And it takes somebody like you to actually put it in your hands and try it and play with it and basically beat on the thing until you find where the breaking points are, and then they go back and then we fix that stuff. So I think it's important to keep that perspective in it, and so I am glad that if you decide to keep it, I am glad that you end up keeping it, and I hope that they take the profits that they've made off of that first revision and continue down the path of making a really premium quality laptop for other users. Now that said, I got to ask you a couple questions, and I guess my first is, and I think I kind of know the answer. If your mother or your grandmother or your sister or your brother was looking for a laptop and they said, hey, Chris, I'm looking for a really nice laptop and I don't have a ton of requirements. I watch a couple movies on YouTube. I check my email, maybe do a little light gaming or maybe a little light video editing or photo editing. Would you be comfortable sending them down the Librem path?
No. And, when the Librem came on the scene, I kind of tried to watch for signs from System 76 like, well, what do you guys think about this? Because this is kind of
Yeah.
barking up your tree here, and they're kind of coming here saying they can do something you can't do. And I think what I'm walking away with is it's way harder to do this than it seems like, as people who are like, well, I know how computers work, I know how Linux works, and I kind of have an idea of what would be a good product.
Yeah.
That doesn't translate to actually shipping a product that works. And so when I think about it in that perspective, when I think System 76 has been around for 10 years, these guys have been around for 445 days. Pretty amazing how close they got for a first attempt. Like, legitimately, you got to give it to them. Like, there's a lot of, but they went from not having a company to forming a company and actually delivering a product that got damn close, just missed on some really important key points. And I got to think if they could actually survive by the third iteration, they'd probably have something here.
Yeah, for sure.
The issue is I spent $1,800 for a prototype. That's what you get when you crowdfund something, right?
Exactly. Now, if they called it a prototype, I don't think any of your criticism would be valid. I think even if you compared it to a MacBook Pro, I think as a prototype, I think that's excellent because obviously in a final revision, you would fix those switches. In a final revision, you would fix the keyboard issue. In a final revision, you would fix the fan issues. That little kind of stuff you can mark out. But when you're saying this is V1, this is the product, I got to tell you, as a person, and you can't say I walked into it with a poor heart. You watch me. I would have thrown down the money for that 13-inch had he been selling it right there at the conference. I was so sold on the computer. So I very much came into this, with a positive attitude. But I can't say after listening to your experiences, I have my same optimism.
As being pointed out in the chat room too, I was also told I'd have core boot for my BIOS, which I did not get. And I'm not I'm not really concerned about that. That wasn't a huge thing for me, but I could see how some people if you're going for sort of the Triskel crowd and whatnot, I could see how that is a big issue not to deliver on that.
Yeah.
And I could see why maybe if you're going for that crowd, it really feels like it was a mixed product. Because if you were going to go for that crowd to begin with, the Free Software Foundation crowd, the people who are willing to buy a Core 2 Duo laptop so that way they can have everything, no binary blobs, then why did you ever even consider NVIDIA to begin with? And I could see them using that as a justification to drop the NVIDIA, but it just always seemed mismatched. That said, I'm going to continue to test it, give you guys some feedback, maybe do some comparison to some other laptops on the market that are sort of in the same arena for competition, and see what it's like without having the fan hooked up and how long I can go. Like, maybe it's going to be just fine. To their credit, the Purism folks have tweeted me. They've offered to connect me with a technical lead to maybe troubleshoot the fan issues from what I've observed from somebody else who got their Librem 15. In our community, they've also had fan issues.
It's not expected behavior then.
I think it is because other people are reporting it too. Yeah, I think it came down to at some point they decided we're really going to adhere to this. We're really going to adhere to this free software mentality, no binary blobs, and so maybe they didn't get
to the point that it doesn't make the computer work. I don't know.
Yeah. Either way, I would say it's sort of a mixed bag, and this is sort of the lesson learned from crowdfunding something like this. But at the end of the day, I've got something that's kind of unique, and I'll try to bring it to Linux Fest. If you guys want to get hands-on with it at Linux Fest Northwest, I'll have it there at the booth. You can experience the Librem. We'll have Noah try it, see what he thinks, and I'll keep you guys updated. That is the Linux Action Show's look at the Librem 15. That brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But before we got to get out of here, I got to give a shout out over to the folks at System 76, in business for a decade, making machines born to run Linux, and they're doing it right. You want a great out-of-the-box experience? Check out System76.com. Everything from the little itsy-bitsy-witsy meerkat all the way up to the Silverback workstation. They also have a bunch of great laptops as well. Like my bonobos, I got two of them in studio, the Oryx Pro, an ultimate desktop killer, and the Lemur, a sub-$1,000 ultra portable. Go check them out, System76.com. And if you want a workhorse for media production, I can give a personal recommendation for the bonobos. I got two of them in studio. System76 creates machines designed to run Linux well. So that way you don't have to fight with things like fans or not having an Ethernet port or just drivers not working. You just get a System76 rig, you stop fighting with your hardware, and you get to play with your Linux. Check them out at System76.com. I would recommend it. Hello, you called in the Linux Action Show. Who are we talking to?
This is Douglas Codes.
Hello, Douglas Codes. It's good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
Just calling in. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Love it, love it. And have you been watching for at least 445 days?
No, I have not. I've probably watched about a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay, so you're close. Right. So you haven't been here for the entire saga, but you've been here for some of the Librem saga.
The Librem saga is very entertaining, and I have been enjoying it. Sorry to hear that it wasn't everything we all hoped it was.
It's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, I got a laptop.
When you have technology that changes every 2 years, to have something that takes a year and a half to ship is probably not the best way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm actually looking to see if I can convince my boss to buy me the Oryx Pro.
Well, there you go. Good thinking. Well, Douglas, thank you for calling in. It was good to hear from you. All right. So let's see.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay, Noah, what do you say I take the first email on this week's feedback? It comes in here, let's say Hard. His name is Hard. I like the last couple of episodes where you installed some hardware, or some software, that is hard to install. You may notice someone in the chat room said, this is turning into an episode of BSD Now. And I agree. Every now and then, that's nice in between interviews and reviews. Would you try to do a production-grade install? I know it's a lot of work, and most of the time, Docker images are provided. But he goes in to say, it'd actually be kind of interesting to see what you have to do to make something production-ready. How the hell can we do that, Noah, and not make it crazy-ass boring?
I think we'd have to do, pre-recorded segments, essentially. And it's something we could definitely work on. It's just that... it takes a little bit of planning. And I think that, if you watched last week's episode, you'd have to watch it live because a lot of the other stuff gets cut out. But you run into a lot of problems. And there are problems that, last week was a bit different because I had an inordinate amount of time stuck behind my computer because just had a baby and I couldn't leave the house. But ordinarily, I'm out doing, work because I have a full-time job and you have other shows to do. So to do a segment like that it requires a significant amount of time on our end to actually make it happen. We'll definitely make it. It's good.
We've done actually a couple of them.
We have, and the reason that I included the email is because email like that is really what drives the show. Because when we find time, or when I find, when I find say, I really want to do more for the show. How can I do it? Those are the kind of pieces of feedback we look at to say, okay, that's what the viewers want. Is they want to do stuff like that. When you just write in emails and complain about stuff, then that doesn't really fix anything.
Yeah.
So really appreciate that. You
want to take Kyle's email about becoming a sysadmin?
Yeah, for sure. So Kyle writes in and he says, I'm interested in becoming a system administrator, but every job posting I find requires a degree or years of experience. Where should I look to get some experience related into the field? I'm joining Linux Academies today and I'm working towards a cert. Well, first off, Kyle, I would say a couple of things. You're headed down the right direction with Linux Academy for actually getting some hands-on experience. Now, when it comes to looking for a job, do not sit on monster.com and click through all of the applications and think that is you are actively searching for a job. You are not. That will not work. Most jobs in this country are had by somebody a connection to get your name in the door. There is an organization I'm aware of. They receive 10,000 job applications in a given year. They hired 137 people back in 2015. If you want to get to the top of that list, the only way that's going to happen, your job application, you fill out one online, you just send it in, it's going to get lost. So you need to take active steps, to try to
demonstrate value.
And one of those things that I find is, talk about demonstrating value is if you have some of those skills, if you go into Linux Academy, maybe you don't have the requisite job experience, but here's something that you might try. It's a little off the wall. It's a little bit crazy, but it's worked for me in a couple different situations. You might, and again, it's a little crazy, might consider going to a place that you really want to work, walking in, saying, I need to talk to the general manager. I want to have a conversation. Sit down with them and say, listen, you know what? I want to come work for you. I can bring more value to your company than it will cost you to pay me. And I'm so confident of that. I want to come work for you for free for a couple of days, maybe a week. And by the end of that week, I will make myself so valuable, you will not be able to send me out the door. You won't be able to get rid of me because I will be so valuable to you.
I think that probably sounds crazy to some people. And I want to stop right there and say, I think this is absolutely the way to go. And as somebody who runs a small business, there's just no way I'm going to hire anybody that's not a proven value to add to my company. And if you look at the opportunity in your small town for people that need a website or something online, or they need their social media, Facebook crap done for them, there's so many little tiny things that you could do for small businesses where you're actually capable of going in and talking to the person that runs the business right there in their shop that very quickly build out a living resume that then make it easier to leapfrog to the next thing. And if you want to build experience, don't shoot for the huge enterprises where they're going to expect this huge amount of prerequisites. Shoot for the small businesses where every single person makes a difference, and you have an opportunity to go in there and be valuable and be humble and be willing to. I get a lot of pushback on Coda Radio when I say this, so I don't know exactly how to say it without getting more crap here on the show, but if you are willing to look at the experience that you gain and the resume building credentials that you gain during that and consider that to be an exchange of value,
absolutely,
then you can get pretty far, because as a business owner, there is literally nothing I do that is scarier and more expensive and riskier than hiring a new employee.
Got it. That isn't the true words
right?
have never been spoken. Oh yeah, we did a P&L in the past couple of years to track exactly what the cost is. It was by far in 2014 and 2015 was our largest expense was training employees, and of those employees that we looked at the correlation between that of how many people actually stay with us for greater than a couple of years, and that really shows us a return on investment. It's abysmal. It's horrible. So it is a huge expense. And if you can, and the other thing is you have to have a certain amount of work ethic. That's the number one thing I look for today. When I go to hire somebody, the number one thing that stands out to me is if somebody has ethics and has a really good moral compass behind them, and they aren't just showing up for a job to collect their paycheck. They actually want to make a difference. They want to matter, and they want to do work that matters, stuff like that. Those are the kind of people that I'm interested in hiring. And if you approach everything like that, and in what you were talking about with small businesses, you could go to a restaurant and buy a Unify access point for $69 off of Amazon, set up for $6 a month on DigitalOcean, a cloud controller, go into a restaurant and say, listen, you don't have decent Wi-Fi. You can use a Wi-Fi analyzer. It'll tell you what the brand is. You'll find that most restaurants, a lot of places will just have like the little Netgear stuff. You go in there and say, hey, look, I did a port scan and I found look at this on my phone. It shows me all these devices that are showing up here because this isn't set up correctly. I'll tell you what, for $100, I'll come in and I'll install this little access point, and you try it. And if it works really well, the only thing I'm asking, because I'm giving it to you for such a great deal, the only thing I ask is you poke a couple of the other restaurant owners that I know you probably know, and let them know that I'm the guy in town that'll come do this for you. And you start doing little things like that and talking and proving your worth. And if you'll do that, you'll show up at a time, you'll do a good job, and you'll charge a reasonable rate, you'll make money. I guarantee it.
And then all of that builds you legitimacy and experience to then get that system administration's job that's that nice, cushy 9-to-5 you want. So Corey W. writes in with our last email. He says, I'm looking at two routers, and I can't decide which one, but it's due to the different operating systems. What is Libre CMC and OpenWRT? I know that they're like Ubuntu and a Fedora, kind of essentially, but I don't understand which is the point of one over the other. Probably everybody in the audience knows OpenWRT, an alternative firmware for routers that is free and open, but Libre CMC, which is a Libre embedded Linux distro. Have you heard of Libre CMC before, Noah?
I have. It's basically my understanding of it anyway, and I'm by no means an expert when it comes to router firmware, but my understanding is that LibreCMC is a more freedom respecting firmware for your router. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's the firmware that's used in the Penguin routers, Free Penguin, whatever. We interviewed them.
Yeah. What are those guys? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know
Freedom Penguin, not Freedom Penguin. That's Matt's thing. The Penguin computing routers.
Yeah. Well, you can go back and look at the Southeast Linux.
Think Penguin. So I'm pretty sure that's what they use on their routers. But it basically comes down to: would you rather have a more widely accepted firmware, OpenWRT, or would you rather have a more freedom-respecting firmware? Is OpenWRT still being really actively maintained? It is, right?
God, I have to think so because the folks at Scale did their whole infrastructure.
I know DDWRT. Not so much.
OpenWRT is the spinoff from DDWRT that's more open, right?
Yes, and more maintained. And so I would imagine either way, heads and above, way better than the factory installed firmware on any of these piece of crap routers that are riddled with security issues a year after they've been on the market, oftentimes 3 months after they've been on the market. They are devastatingly insecure and a complete and utter incompetence on the part of the manufacturers and literally putting the privacy and security of people all around the world at risk. So replacing those firmwares with Libre CMC or OpenWRT or I don't care what, even pfSense is way better. And you're getting lost in the weeds when you're kind of already on the right track. And I wouldn't be surprised if you can run one, you probably should be able to run the other, I would think too.
Yeah. Just don't get what we call paralysis at the neck.
Producer Rotten Corpse clarifies the latest release of OpenWRT was just 5 months ago. So
there we go.
Still alive and well, which is good. And real quick, you love those Microtechs that have the built-in Wi-Fi. So that's another way to go too. Hey, did you know we do this show live on a Sunday at noon Pacific PM? Holy crap, you can go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar and you can get that converted to your local time zone. You hang out with us live. You get way more show. Lots of stuff we do live. Plus, we take calls. We took calls today. We take calls just about every episode now. And if you participate live, you can call into the big show and tell us what's on your mind from anything we've talked about before. Did you know you can also submit content and contribute to the show and give us your feedback and influence the direction by going to linuxactionshow.reddit.com? Holy smokes! This is true. But I got a secret for you. Dirty secret. Linux Fest Northwest, just around the corner. And we're planning to have 2 live days there. And we would love to have you join us. Go to linuxfestnorthwest.org. I think that's the website to check out details. Consider coming. I'm going to bring Lady Jupes. Have it hopefully parked in the parking lot. Haven't told them yet, although I've said it a couple times on air, so they better get the message. But I mean, come on. They got a big parking lot. Huh?
Right?
Yeah, I'm sure they know, right? I mean, sure. I'll email them right now. And I would love to have you guys there. It's going to be a great show. Linux Fest Northwest. It's one of the best Linux events in the world, and it's right here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. That's also another way you can come hang out with us. Noah, people got to check you out on Twitter. There's some Twitter handle you have.
At Kernel Linux. I haven't been as active as I would like to be. I tried to take pictures of funny things I see in the field as I'm going about. And it's not that those things haven't come up. It's just that I've been in kind of a time rush to get back home lately. And so haven't had a whole lot of time to document them. But I am taking pictures of them. And so I have like my spank bank of horrible things I see in the field, so to speak. And I
like it.
Put those out
For some reason. Okay, you can follow me at Chris SLAS. That's like Linux Action Show. You can follow the network at Jupiter Signal. Can't stop the signal at Jupiter Signal. You know, we got like episode releases, news, and stuff like that. Probably pretty handy when Linux Fest comes around too. So check those out. But really, we'd love to have you join us live. That's a lot of fun. But last but not least, you can always get the download version available on demand with an RSS feed. It's brand new stuff. Go check it out. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next week.
This is really how mad I am at this.
What's the matter? What's the matter, baby?
This is as bad as Windows.
Uh-oh.
This thing freezes up now on me once every 2-3 days. And like, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I should probably just blow away the OS and reinstall. And then it dawns on me, that was the entire reason I wanted to go away from Windows, is to get away from doing that.
Yeah,
and now, I just tried to take a screen cap. I push the print screen button, and my whole freaking desktop is frozen up. Like, it's all white and frozen.
So one of the reasons I've been hurting for a new laptop and why the delay on the Purism was kind of killing me is my main Arch workstation upstairs in my office. It's from 2009, and I still have like a lot of stuff on spinning disks in there.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what is exactly going on. It feels like I'm running out of CPU and memory at the same time. And I can't really narrow it down because I always have gedit open, terminal open, Telegram open, and Chrome open. And usually VLC open. And so I have those 5 applications running, but that's it. Well, and background things like Dropbox and SyncThing and stuff like that. But
your desktop freezing up? Maybe it's Telegram.
Dude, it's totally, it's like this all of a sudden chug, slung.
Yeah.
And then it's just totally hung. Are you using Chrome?
Yes.
You are? See, I've heard it's a Chrome thing.
I mean, at Firefox, I have Chrome open because the stupid Hangouts thing.
So I'm wondering if it's a Chrome thing, actually.
Huh.
Because it seems to be triggered like when I'm opening a bunch of tabs in Chrome or something like that. And then the whole machine, like, I think maybe if I left it for 15 minutes, it might eventually come back. I'm not quite sure. So I end up
That's not a practical solution.
No, I have to put, I legitimately am losing work because a lot of times I compose Markdown in gedit or something like that. And then I paste it into the final destination. And so just in that like 30-second, I'm taking something from a website. Oh, I found this link. I'm going to open that in background tab while I write this up. And then my machine locks up and I've lost my work.
I'm happy that this isn't just me. At first, I was starting to get mad at Ubuntu. Maybe it's a piece of software I'm running. You're the only person that has experience on a Mac that wants to act.
That's not true. That is not true. No, that's not
that
true.
I've talked to. I haven't met. Every one of those people at the conferences. And I talked to them. I asked every single one of them, and not one of them has ever once told me, "Yeah, I would run Linux if it was a better experience." All of them say, "Well, it works for me, and Mac OS works just fine."
No, Mac OS is a train wreck. Mac OS has been a train wreck for years, and I'm not the only person saying that. And here's the problem. Here's the fundamental problem with switching people away from Mac OS is it does do a lot of the things well that you needed to do if those things are a pretty standard user selection of things. And the fact that it has a shitty terminal that works like crap that you can replace if you need to, that's a plus for it too. But I think anybody who uses it for a little while, under any kind of serious workload, there are so many problems with so many fundamental aspects of the operating system. You can't actually use it for serious work without running into issues with HFS Plus, for example. It's literally not possible, and it is a clown file system that has been around from the 80s. That makes ButterFS look like the fucking Cadillac of file systems.
Coming from you, that means something.
I'm not joking. I mean, it makes ButterFS look like the new coming of file systems compared to HFS, and they're shipping these $5,000 computers with this clown show of file system. And here's an example of something you might run into. HFS only supports accessing one file at a time. Think about that for a second. Think about all the things that are going on in your operating system in the background that you didn't even ask it to do that require accessing files. Now, imagine a scheduler and a system that has been developed for the last 20 years to compensate for this really shitty limitation where it uses your RAM and it buffers and it caches. Now, picture this, right? So, you got yourself a photo library with 30,000 photos. It loads kind of slow for some reason. I'm not sure. I have a PCI SSD that's welded onto my fucking motherboard that is so fast it can do a gigabyte transfer a second, and yet for some reason my photo library runs kind of slow. I'm not sure what that's about. That's how you kind of notice it as like an average user. Like, well, I guess they're pretty big photos. I do have a lot of megapixels. That's what average users think. But when you're actually working on large video files and you're producing content of, maybe it's like a 60 gigabyte project and there's 200 assets associated with that project, and you go to load that effing project, guess what? It has to touch all of those files. Now just imagine you're exporting that project out and you're going out to a mezzanine file and it has to take every single one of those assets, it has to access every single segment file, and it has to render them into one cohesive file. Well, guess what you're doing? You're reading a file and you're reading hundreds of them and then you're writing to a file. Well, guess what HFS can't do? It can't access more than one file at a time, read or write, so it has to read, buffer, and then write. So just doesn't matter. You could have a Core i7, you could have 2 effing Xeons with 12 cores. You can have 32 gigabytes of RAM. You can have welded on PCIe Express storage that can do over a gigabyte of transfer a second, and you can only access one file at a second. And because Apple knows this, and they've put a whole bunch of lacquer up so you don't notice it, it most of the time doesn't really affect anybody. But if you actually go to use the system to do any real world work, you run into this limitation. And that's just one that makes Mac OS a completely unsuitable workstation OS. Now, if you're spending most of your time in a terminal and you're SSH'd into a Linux server where you're getting your actual work done, then you don't notice it as much when your $3,000 MacBook can't access more than one file at once. But when you're actually using it for work that actually pushes all that hardware to do what it's supposed to do, you notice it. And you know what's really funny? People notice this when they install Linux on the same exact hardware. It's phenomenally faster. Michael Dominic from Coder Radio, he has an old machine that he was running Mac OS on for a long time. Drive pops, he decides to put a new drive in, this time goes to Linux. Holy shit, he says, this runs so much faster. I don't even need to replace this machine anymore. I can't believe how much faster this computer is. You know why? One reason, you're not using HFS. One of many reasons. Now let's talk about their GPU drivers. Apple mandates that they ship the GPU driver with Mac OS X. Well, guess what that means? Apple doesn't give a shit about your special GPU application. Apple doesn't give a shit about gaming. So they have some of the worst video drivers in the industry. Hey, you bought yourself a Mac Pro with a really nice graphics card? You can't even go more than 60 frames per second on that thing. Oh, you want to go more than that? Go screw yourself. You boot into Windows, guess what? 300 frames per second for rendering. You do it under Mac OS X, 60 frames per second capped. Because that's what the driver caps it at. Why? Oh, they never got around to fixing it. But I hope you enjoy your $5,000 MacBook.
Please tell me Wirecast is recording.
Gabriel. Well, hello, Gabriel.
Hi, Gabriel.
Can you hear Noah, Gabriel? Noah, say something.
I said the number 6. Repeat the number 6 to me.
I don't hear anything.
Oh, damn it! Oh no! No. Okay. Gabe, can you hear Gabriel? Can you hear Kyra?
I'm Kyra, and this is the
not
Ting
at the moment. I
download.
can't hear Kyra, but I was hearing the echo earlier.
So you heard the echo. So okay, hold on, don't say anything. I'm gonna play Kyra again.
On your phone, this is the app for you.
Did you hear her?
Nope.
I don't understand. I'm telling you, no. I'm telling you. Oh well, Gabriel, what's on your mind, sir?
Well, actually, I just wanted to call you guys because I met both of you at Scale. I was at your guys' your luncheonette at Yard House.
Good man.
And I didn't get a chance to talk to you afterward, but you guys have been a huge influence in me switching over to Linux 100%. And I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Ooh, awesome. Love to hear that. Love it. So you run it on like your main machine now?
Actually, every one of my machines has Linux. I have 3 laptops, a desktop, a Raspberry Pi. Every one of them has Linux.
Very nice. Very nice, sir. Very nice. Well, did you enjoy Scale? Are you going to do it again?
Yes, I would love to do Scale. I actually I was there long enough and talked to enough people that I actually got job interviews to work with Linux.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good
So
job.
It was a really
Right
good
into my
experience.
feedback.
Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. Thanks for calling in. Let's see. It was Sweet Lou, are you still there? Sweet Lou. Oh, hold on. We got another call. Oh, my God, Noah. Hello. You called into the Linux Action Show. I'm sure it was an accident. What's on your mind? It was an accident. See, I was right. Sweet Lou, are you there? Sweet Lou, how do you pick up a line? Let's see.
Well, it depends. Where'd you park them? Or you're not parked. So
I don't know, man. I don't. Oh, hold on. We got another call. Here we go. Hello, you called in the Linux Action Show. Hello, what's your name? Hello, what's your name? Hello.
This is Sweet Lou. I'm here. We must have somehow got disconnected.
No, I hung up on you for a second, but now I got another call. Now, how do I? Oh, hello. This is the Linux Action Show. What's your name? Hello. So okay. Sweet Lou, are you there again?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're a good man, Sweet Lou. What's on your mind? All right, finish it up.
Librem pretty much screwed you over royally. I mean Purism rather.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, can you say that when you're crowdfunding something like that? I didn't go to a website and put an order in, right?
Well, they made you wait for nearly 2 whole years, and then you got something like what you had.
You're just rubbing it in.
At that point,
Sweet Lou, you're rubbing it in. All right, hello. You called in the Linux Action Show. Who are we talking to? All right. Everybody buckle up. I'm frickin' Batman. What? All right, in 3, 2.
That's a Batman impression.
No, that was. Don't even get me started. That wasn't my Batman impression.